7.
Nah.
Thank you. Call the meeting to order, please. Chris, would you do the roll?
Deanna Carlson.
Here.
Todd Levieri.
Here.
Michael Chen.
Here.
Chris Labrise is here. Victor Alvarez.
Here.
Maria Weingarten.
Here.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Robert Hamel.
Here.
James Yao.
Here.
Nicholas Matrakis.
Here.
Jan Schaefer.
Here.
Steve Doka.
Here.
Okay, you have a full
Full house.
house.
All
Nobody
right,
needs to
very
be
good.
seated.
Thank you. I need a motion to approve the minutes from our regular meeting on the 6th. Anybody? Any takers? James, second? Yeah, Nick was here. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, opposed, none? Okay. Okay, tonight we have Park and Rec and Public Works. Who's up? So we'll have Parks and Recs first. And Josh has put a little cheat code on your space so you can see which pages are what for which topics. You see this? It's
Yep.
very helpful.
Those are page numbers.
Yeah.
Sure, I'm gonna decode it.
Your mic's on.
Secret lottery code numbers.
Bingo.
Oh, my goodness. All right. Thank you guys for coming in. Thanks for pulling this together. Terrific. Over to you.
Oh, okay. I think you have the presentation in front of you,
The
but
only thing I'm gonna ask you to do is just pull that mic a little bit closer if you're gonna speak into it at all.
Okay.
That's better, but just so people can hear you online.
good evening. I'm John Howe, as you know, and I'm here with Zach Philippus, the Assistant Recreation Director, and Ryan Restivo, the newly appointed Park Superintendent.
Welcome.
So,
He's getting a lot of sleep these days.
exactly. Thank you for the time and consideration of our budget for the Parks and Recreation budget. Your support is greatly appreciated. We take pride in delivering exceptional services and presenting a fiscally responsible budget that meets the needs of New Canaan residents. This budget ensures continued excellence and of our properties and supports some of the best programs available for residents of all ages. The overall budget reflects a 2.99 overall operating budget reflects a 2.99% increase, primarily driven by two key factors. The Parks Department union contract has been settled, and that affected basically 2 years worth of budgets. And the funding of additional programs at LAPM as they come off the grant that they've been. So we'll start right into Parks. Parks operational budget, we're requesting.
You gonna share?
Already did. A sec. Share. There. Okay. So the parks operational budget, requesting $2,385,574, 5.2% increase. Of that, there's a few things that are not in your budget book. After the union contract was settled, there's the overtime wasn't adjusted. So basically staying with the same thing. There's a meal allowance and Social Security. So those numbers were I've added in there, but does not reflect in your budget book. So the meal tickets, we went up $3,821. Partially because of the union contract, but also partially because we started picking up litter in the parks departments early in the morning. And with the union contract, the guys get a meal allowance for those. So security went up $434. And the last thing, the overtime, we figured it out on the difference between double time and time and a half and came up with a very realistic number. So the other main thing in the parks operational budget, we brought over from civic activities, which was a separate line items. We basically closed that section down and transferred those monies into other budgets. So into the parks department, there's a new line item, outside services refuse, which is basically for the portable toilets you see around the parks, either in off-season or on the athletic fields during the seasons. So that was 17,500. Grass treatments, we made some adjustments there. Since Capo Field is no longer natural grass, we took out the money that we've been spending for fertilizer and seed there. And we're proposing to do some work on Waveney Lawn, mainly behind the house. So with that, there was a reduction of 18,500, an addition with the lawn of 11,400. And then unfortunately, we're still looking at about a 6% projected increase on fertilizer and seed. So we go right into civic activities. That basically does not have any money in it anymore. So we've transferred that out. So rec administration is 2.95% increase, or $593,850. Of note, there's a $100,000 credit that comes back from the self-sustaining, which we'll go into later. And we added one item in there. We'd like Zach to go to the National Park and Rec Conference next year. So we added in $3,110 for that.
The rec administration,
Thank you. Yes, the one thing we did originally propose, but we since has taken out, we were looking for $45,000 for park ranger, field supervisor. For a number of reasons, we've decided to pull that out at this time.
Okay.
It was going to be for somebody to look at, be out there at the fields and make sure that proper teams were playing on the proper fields. And if we find it's going to be a little bit of a management nightmare, hiring potentially 3 or 4 employees part-time when there's not going to be a supervisor around routinely. So at this time, we'd like that to be removed. So that takes out $45,000.
It'll be a $7,000 line item.
Right. Waveney House. $103,978, a reduction of 15.62%. We're very happy. This comes after last year where we had a reduction of 22%, almost 23%. Paddle tennis, we did make some switches in accounts and reduced it by 15.67%, asking for $26,900. This is for mainly the maintenance of the paddle courts and the facilities right there. So. Park buildings, $289,800. That's a 0.52% increase. And we'd have a reduction if it wasn't for the fact that we needed to put in $25,000 for CHP gas, since we have the CHP unit over at Lapham Community Center running. Lapham Community Center. So we've had almost about 28,000 people go through Lapham on a yearly basis. Excellent work. The grant's been very successful. And just to give you a little bit of information, the grant came in last year, and it's to extend hours more than anything. So with that, we'd like to have some money for the second half of the year because the grant will be up. So we need some more money in part-time and also meeting expense. So.
How does 28,000 visitors compare to prior years?
It's actually, this year, it's going up. If we were looking at the fiscal year, it probably would have stayed the same. But if you look at the calendar, the one thing we noticed this year, and Aggie actually mentioned it today, is the fact that people didn't seem to go away the same. And maybe it's because we've had 2 warmer winters, but she's been busy. And usually in January, there's nobody around. But, you know, until just recently, the weather's been pretty good. So I'm going to say probably up from like 24,000. Some of that's the extended hours.
Could you add some color to the 7.5% part-time salary increase at LAP?
What we're finding is with the grant, having extra time, few things happen. Unfortunately, Kathy Collins, not unfortunately, fortunately, she's working it, but she'll work some extra, so she'll get some overtime, some extra hours for that. So that's part of it, but also just the other programs.
Part-timers do you have?
A lot of part-timers, but she's full-time, but she gets overtime. But then as part-time instructors, we'll have some people that might work 3 hours in a couple of weeks, and then others that will work a few hours every day, that type of thing. So exact number I can't give you.
Funded position goes into the extra hours related to the grant funded position that's going away. That salary goes into part-time or overtime.
Yes, some of that goes into part-time, yes. Kiwanis Park, 1.59% increase, $82,996. Okay. So summary overall, we're at a 2.99% increase. Our total for all the parks and recreation operating budgets of $3,853,656.
Sorry, Jen, do you cover Irwin?
Irwin, as far as it's the maintenance of Irwin goes underneath the parks operating budget, like the mowing and trimming and leaves, that type of stuff. That's just into the parks budget. We don't separate it out on how much we use.
So what Waveney or Bristow or anything doesn't matter, they're all.
Right. The only thing is in the parks operation budget, the bottom line is for Bristow Bird Sanctuary. There's some money that was last year was dedicated strictly for Bristow. But other than that, we do not have any place where we have money that's strictly for one park or one property.
Okay, I see Bristow there. Okay. Okay. Do you have what you need?
Yes, we can maintain our parks and run our programs. We'll go into self-sustaining and everything. In the condition we are, if all of a sudden there was an interest in changing conditions, yes, there need to be an increase, but no, we are well-staffed. We are well-supported financially. We have what we need.
Any questions on that summary page? Okay.
So since we've been using the recreation fund, it's actually been working very well. You know, the first one there, before and after school programs, I'm going to just kind of give you an overview. Basically, what we do is we try to have all our programs run on a small profit, partially because we want to give the $100,000 back to the operating budget, but also the fact that then if something happens, we have a great program running and all of a sudden 3 kids decide not to go for whatever reason, maybe we can still run the program at a loss. But in general, we do not run our programs at a loss, but we're also not trying to make money. You know? So, but like before and after school, about 1,600 kids that go through the schools in the before and after school programs. Summer camps, you know, we have 3 sessions. Zach's been able to increase the number of kids every year. And our limiting factor is we don't have a place except Waveney House for the kids to go if we have inclement weather, thunderstorms, that type of stuff. So we're at 375 kids. That's about where we're stuck. It's 375 through the 3 sessions. Soccer and other, you know, that's anything from the soccer program at Waveney to yoga, hit to be fit programs, that type of stuff. Flag football, 52 kids go through the program. And if you watch the Super Bowl, they're trying to make female flag football a high school sport. And just a little incentive like that could change what our program needs to be for next year. So, you know, it's very exciting. you know, softball, which is mainly the men that play, but there's 126 people that play softball. Tennis, over 1,200 people go through our programs a year, you know, for clinics. It's a lot. Paddle tennis, 6,500 participants over the winter. And that we're noticing is a little bit less. It's easier to get court times. And we think it's mainly because of pickleball. As long as there's not snow in the pickleball courts, people still want to play. So, and then our special events, with our special events this last year, 2,008 participants. Anything from the father-daughter dance to the fall festival, you know, breakfast with Santa. Those are the special events. So.
What was the attendance on pickleball?
Hmm?
You left out the attendance on pickleball.
We definitely have over 4,000. Part of our problem on pickleball for true number is that if the courts were clear this time of year, people would be down there playing and we don't have an attendant there to log them in. We've extended the hours some because we were noticing that even though it's the off season, there was still more people wanting to play. And what we feel was happening is there was potentially out of towners playing, and then our residents weren't able to. So we extended our attendance longer in the season.
So you clear off the snow for the paddle tennis, but not the pickleball?
Correct.
Peter's there too.
Yes,
That's true.
we do clear off the snow for paddle tennis. Those courts are made so you can. Fortunately, the painted surface on pickleball can't be shoveled or snow blowed or anything like that. And we don't want to have to replace that surface every few years.
Okay, so it's not biased.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Don't get Michael all fired up here. I can see him racing to get off mute.
I'm tempted, Todd. I'm tempted.
Why he's in Florida.
Playing pickle probably.
Snow here.
Exactly.
So we also go into weddings. That's part of the self-sustaining fund, but it's marketed, not marketed separately. It's accounted for separately. So where with the new rate increases, that takes time to go into effect because if you're booked, you stay at the existing rate of what you booked at. But right now we're projecting about 195,000 income with about 161,483 in expenses. With the new wedding coordinator, it's been very successful. The amount of tours and the amount of people that are interested, we're having a lot more Friday, Saturday, Sundays bookings all 3 days. So good. Steve Benko Pool. We're looking for $581,115 at 2.92% increase. Last year, we had 46,650 people come to the pool.
Wow.
So when you think of the number of members and everything, there's a lot of use. With that said, we have never had to close the pool because of overcrowding. So we're very happy. It's 21 years old. One of the things we want to do this year is it's recommended that we have a consultant come in and evaluate the whole pool, anything from the infrastructure part of it, but also things like signs, make sure that the proper signage for today's standards, not what was done 21 years ago. So we want to do that this spring. Thank you for listening and working with us.
You want to go through capital?
Can go right into it if you'd like.
Let's throw the questions on operating.
Just
Yeah, go ahead.
a question. Doing some back of the envelope calculations that you said you don't want to run this for profit, but it seems like if you add up the surplus and the net in all of the operations, I get about $146,000.
Exactly. And 100 of that goes right back to cover administrative expenses in the rec budget. It's
Okay.
transferred back. So, and that number could be adjusted. You know, we're not trying to make a war chest. I don't know what else you could call it, but
Nonetheless, these programs contribute. And while some of it is used to offset the regular budget, which is fine, because money comes from somewhere, some of it filters its way back to the town, I guess, the other 46,000 or so.
It stays in an account.
Oh, it stays in the account.
It
That's right.
stays in the account, and my feeling is if 3 years from now, it's been 46 each year, we've gone up, it's time to give 200,000 back or whatever. I believe that would be your purview. on
A lot,
how
a lot
much
of
to go
that
back.
surplus comes from summer
But
camp.
for all these programs that contribute about $150,000
Absolutely.
to the town, I mean, that is, that not only do you give us something terrific as a product, but it's also contributing some.
Offset some of the cost. Do you
Yeah.
have a question?
I was just gonna say, a lot of that number you're seeing comes from summer camp, and because of the new recreation fund, we're able to add more kids, which is great. So that's where that number comes from. Summer
that's
camp
Fun
mostly.
Valley?
Okay.
Well, no. I think the pilot was a success. Okay.
Excellent.
Even with this, though, we're still governed to a budget. So it's not like
course,
we can
of course.
go spend
No question.
200,000 on tennis
No,
balls.
no question about that. No. No question about that.
Okay. So,
Maybe to reiterate what Chris was saying, great value, great programs. They pay for themselves to some extent. But also there's not a lot of pressure on raising the price because of what you just described. It's perfect, right? I think it's
Mhm.
probably. Yeah, it's good.
we'd still like to be known as the best value around.
That's right. That's a
You
good way
know.
to look at it. That's great.
So everybody can go. We still offer, with that, we still offer some scholarships.
Hmm.
So, well,
And the pool runs a slight surplus too, right?
a slight surplus. We are raising the rates this year. We're in the process of raising the rates if it goes through. But that sits all by itself too. Yeah. So if you want to go into capital equipment, we can. Gonna need Tiger up here at the infrastructure part, but for the capital equipment itself, we're looking at 5 items this is for parks maintenance. So the first one is a vehicle replacement of an existing vehicle that is already 10 years old. And by the time the new one comes in, it will probably be 11 to 11 and a half. Next item, a ride-on mower. Those are the zero-turn mowers. We use them all over the parks and everything. We get about 8 years out of them. The new one to the budget is a stand-up machine. This, you can see on the picture, that's mainly used for snow, but there's other things we can use it for. We want to have it with a plow, a snow blower, and a rotating brush. And that would help us on a lot of our properties that are shoveled, constantly. Like in these small storms where we all say 2 inches of snow, it still all has to be shoveled by hand. So something like this will really help us a lot. And we're looking to replace a 10-foot out front rotary. And the last one is replacing a tractor. The tractor that we'd be replacing is about 40 years old. So.
One question, and the board members have this, and I think maybe, I'm not sure you do. We have a summary of all the capital that's been approved, but for projects that either aren't complete or haven't been started, and it's a lot.
Mhm.
And I think if I've got parks right. Sorry, I left my original copy at home safely with my Board of Ed deck. So, yeah, maybe Tiger should come up, because I think we're talking about infrastructure, let's do it all together. I think the question is, and probably not to answer all of it completely tonight, that wouldn't be fair, but we may have to have you come back and Tiger on capital, because we've got to cut capital. And when we see all of this available, it's important that we're not asking the taxpayers for more money when we've already approved this money and it hasn't been spent yet. So we have a 72-inch mower, $38,000. Again, we got to think about all of and you've got another mower that you're looking for. So again, I don't want to solve for it now. I'm not in the weeds on it. All I know is we've approved money that hasn't been spent. We're asking for more money, and we have to rationalize that. So I don't know if the board's okay with it. I don't think we need answers tonight for that, because it's not quite fair, and not to hammer it out, but maybe go back tonight or this week, and we'll have you back, not next week, but the week after, to think through and rationalize the two piles of requests. Is that fair?
Sounds good.
Okay. If there's anything you want to cut right now, it's okay.
Not out of this.
Okay, all right.
Just the grass.
Do you want to mention, oh, so infrastructure, I
You
guess.
want to
there's-
go into infrastructure? Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. The same question applies, but, yeah,
Good, and we have some good answers for you there.
okay.
So as I go through it, field improvements, we did reduce that by 10,000, mainly because that's mainly baseball and softball infield work. And Coppo Field's going artificial, and the men's softball field that's there is not going to be rebuilt at this time. So we've been able to lower that. Irrigation upgrades, when you look through your list, I'm sure you see a lot of different account numbers over many different years.
Mm-hmm.
We finally are moving forward. And if the weather was better, we'd be having Mead Park installed right now. So we went out to bid for both Mead Park, which the irrigation system there, it's replacing the main lines, the controls, and the sprinklers themselves, not the well. And that work's been approved by the Board of Selectmen and should be commencing over the winter, but the weather's been holding that back. We also went out to bid for doing the same thing at Connor and Sachs School. They work off the same thing. And if this money's approved, we'll be clearing out all those old balances, using that money up. And that's why we need 175 to finish Sachs and Connor this summer, because that Sachs School definitely has to be done in the summertime when school's not in session. So that's clearing up some of those numbers. Exterior wall repair.
That's almost the exact same thing. So we have some leftover monies from previous years. We did a lot of the work on Lapham Road, the stone wall leading the entire length of Waveney itself. I don't know if you've seen that. It's excellent. And now we're looking at going back to the interior, and I've got Keith Simpson Associates working on that work for the area around the Rose Garden. And if you look at the Rose Garden wall, you can actually see through it. So there's spaces in the mortar that you can actually see through the wall. And the goal is to have this money and the previous monies together and do that work this coming spring into the summer.
Okay, playground
You know what,
update.
I just have a question though. So,
Use your mic.
sorry. I just have a question, based on that list. So we have, the 25 stuff makes sense. There's 100,000 in there, and that's from 2025 on the irrigation upgrades. But if I go back to 2018, that's a small amount, but then there's 2019 of 40,600 and 2020 of 85,460. So, I mean, we need to kind of,
We definitely, and when we approved Mead, we used the oldest money first for Mead.
okay,
And then we figured out, since we went to bid for Sachs and Connor, we know how much we needed, and that's why there's 175,000 in our request, because it takes all the old money.
so you saw this list and you went all the way back.
The only thing about what you just said though, John, is we didn't approve that money knowing this was coming. So
Okay.
you think about it that way.
Okay.
And we can't just add on to it and say, then now we'll get it done. See what I'm saying? I mean, we didn't, 2018, we didn't approve. We approved it thinking that was the money, and now we're saying we need a little bit more money because we're going to use this old money for that. We got to clean this up. It could be perfect, but I'm guessing there's either overlap or gaps, or there's something here because there's a lot that's approved. We're talking about, the total was 8 million. Well, for the whole town, the whole town is over $8 million. Well, you can't count some of this because the fire, the police department's in there and some things like that we know are coming. But in any event, it's a lot. Yeah, Parks was what?
Completely understand what you're saying.
Parks is 9 million. Now in there's probably Dunning or something. It's okay, Capo. So we get that, but not 9 million, right? So we've already got 9 million out there, has been spent. And we're asking for, whatever, 3 million more. So anyway. Okay. You want to keep ticking these off, or you're?
Okay.
So Dunning, do you want to maybe?
Do you want to?
It does, to me, it does whichever way you want to go.
Keep going. You got
Okay.
let's keep going.
So playground updates, we've increased that, and that's mainly for, we found some deficiencies at Kiwanis. So going up to $30,000, might seem like a lot of money, but compared to a new playground, it's nothing.
Yeah.
The playground at Kiwanis does not need to be replaced, but there is some substantial repairs that we need to do. You'll notice in there, there's Kiwanis splash pad design. That and the basketball court that we were looking to redo at Kiwanis was taken out of the budget by the Board of Selectmen. And at last night's Park and Rec Commission meeting, they started forming a committee to look at a master plan for Kiwanis. And I think it's a great idea, you know. So.
Okay.
Fence back, stop repair. Again, it's, you know, we're looking at all our fences through a lot of parks and stuff like that. So, but that's another one similar to the irrigation. You could give me the same argument if you're looking through the list. So we'll get back to you then.
Okay.
Water fountains, this has been a multi-year project. We're finally coming to the end. We want to put a brand new water fountain at the track to service the track and Farm Road. That involves a water tap and everything like that. So. Dunning was so, you know, that's capital upgrades to Dunning, which after we took over the maintenance of Dunning, it's for some of the capital work that needs to be done in there. Bleacher repairs, you'll see 100,000. I wish I could be here tonight. And I told the Board of Selectmen the same thing. I don't know the number. It could be up to 100,000. We've got some problems with the Dunning home field bleachers that we need to fix. And I hope the number is going to come down to around $20,000, but it could be that high. We're still waiting on a proposal.
What's the problem?
The major problem is the front fence, the fence that's right bordering the fields is starting to lean, and it needs to be all shored up so that fence will stay up. That's the main problem.
Right, but it's an elevated deck. So since it's an elevated deck, it's difficult to get that connection to work so that you're not leaning over. So that's the biggest problem, is trying to figure out how that's going to work. So John's been working through that with the designer to make sure they get a proper connection. So we get a beefier connection so we don't run into this problem.
The kids will surge on the
Right.
fence a little bit. And we haven't figured out a way to stop that, unfortunately. And we don't want the fence to come down with potentially 30 kids falling down about 5 feet.
Raises a good point though on the list, this page, the next page, other pages. How much of this is bid out at these numbers and how much of these are sort of placeholder estimates? Like that one's a placeholder estimate on the high end, and, you know, because you don't know, I get it, but
We don't know yet. And I think before we're done with the budget process, we should have a.
okay,
proposal
that's a good
much better.
answer. So May, you'll know more.
Oh, I think I was hoping to be here tonight knowing that.
Next Friday, you'll know more. Okay, okay.
Like the next one, when you talk about placeholder estimates, the AEDs, you know, Norwalk
Next
Hospital.
page.
Okay, sorry. Norwalk Hospital, we've had a grant for a number of years.
What's the next, there you go. Thank you.
The town's had a grant through Norwalk Hospital for outdoor AEDs throughout town. They're on athletic fields. There are 15 of them around town. That's the price we need to replace the AEDs. Unfortunately, that they're at the end of their life expectancy and need to be replaced. The one thing that will do is it won't affect this year's operating budget, but it will affect somebody's operating budget next year because you need them inspected. You're going to have to replace batteries and pads every year. So there will be a cost associated with that.
Well, we always say safety's always in the budget.
So this one is the Waveney Trail reconstruction. We have a bid out right now for the monies that we have available. That's for the stretch from the South Avenue entrance along South Avenue, from the South Avenue entrance to Farm Road. It's about 2,750 feet. We're going to take care of that stretch. And then the only really remaining piece that we've got on the front there is what this would tie up, which is from the South Avenue entrance heading southbound along South Avenue to the Merritt Parkway. So where you turn off the Merritt Parkway. And at that point in time, the Conservancy is looking at that entire Merritt Parkway trail as a redesign. So we're leaving that open. So, but this next 60,000, and that number pretty much comes off of our last year's bid, which was in October. those numbers carrying forward, so they're not very old. So I basically took that based upon the quantities that we have for the next one going forward, and that's the number that we need. We normally we'd be asking for either 30 to 50, but it's really to get that one piece in to round the corner to match up to where the conservancy is. It's a $60,000 ask.
Track research.
Just a question.
Sure.
I wonder if, when we get, let's take this, you know, these unspent funds with the sprinkler system, for example, okay, the irrigation system. When you finally come back to us and say, okay, we need a net for this year of 175,000, could you lay it out and say, we got a bid to do this work of $300,000. We have 125,000 of unspent years, and here is year 1, 2, 3, 4 through, you know, how many there are.
Very
And
easy.
here's the net.
That's
and
how I
here's the
figured
net.
out
And-
175.
And this is how we're getting this number, and this top number is a firm bid. The guy's gonna do it for this dollar amount. You know,
You
whatever
probably need that,
contingencies in
yeah.
there.
If you've got it, we need that. That would be great
And for all these projects.
for everything.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, so tie out to the unspent.
Sounds good. Track resurface and top coat. We're at about the 6-year mark. And so it's labeled track resurface and top coat, but this year what we'd be looking for is to clean the surface and repaint the lines. We probably should have done it a year ago. Because then in the 27-28 budget, it's time to put a new surface on the track itself. So in that, at present dollars, we're estimating it at about 250,000. So that will be coming forward. But this is just to repaint and clean it up. Pickleball courts at Waveney. What we'd like to do is build 4 pickleball courts at Waveney with lights. It solves a lot of problems. We have a lot of pickleball usage. The thing that it solves is by able to put lights on there, people can play early in the morning, they can play in the evening till like 9:30, 10 o'clock. And there's no neighbors, so there's no noise issues. We have received some complaints and we do limit the hours down at Mead Park. For that.
This isn't using any existing court. These would truly be new. There's not, you can't use paddle, you can't use tennis. You have to create new.
We'd have to create new.
Okay,
There's-
okay. Just
there's-
asking.
How many quotes?
For the 200,000.
Hey, John, I thought we're gonna look at the space to see if you can do even more for the space rather than, and save some money doing it that way.
In the subcommittee meeting, it came up the fact that maybe we should put in 6 because they definitely would get use for it. Right now, we haven't been able to design to make sure we can fit them in the space. You can see this is not to scale and it's not exactly how they'd be laid out or anything else. It's just kind of a place so you know where they go. They go up near the paddle courts. If you were going to the dog park, they'd be on your left-hand side between the roadway. So we haven't got to the point where we can say that where we can fit 6 courts in there.
Okay, got
Naming rights are still available.
it. Todd, you want it? You got first dibs.
I'd have to recuse myself.
The paddle pickleball plaza, there was 290,000 in there for that. That the Park and Rec Commission decided that wasn't their priority. They think the pickleball
Okay.
courts is a priority. They'd like to investigate that further before they say that's where they'd like to have a picnic area.
Pickleball courts are at Mead.
There's 5 at Mead.
5.
So that, the 290, that's not in there. And the same with the basketball court at Kiwanis. Waveney Park Pavilion. This is a new item. Presently where we have summer camp out on the athletic field, since it's an outdoor summer camp. And we put up a tent for the 6 weeks of summer camp. We'd like to have a permanent structure, which would be able to have picnic tables on it. People could go picnic there during the off season, but it also gives the shelter for the summer camp to be outside. And if it's not thunder and lightning, If we had a little bit of drizzle, they could still do a lot of their arts, crafts, that type of activities. So the two pictures on there are just two designs we saw online. It's not necessarily that we're picking either one of them, but basically we're looking for a roof with a
One
concrete.
is significantly more attractive than the other.
Yes, I agree with you.
And we discussed this morning, Tiger, right, that this can be used for baseball field, ice skating rink, right? Because it's in the vicinity.
It's in the vicinity of the softball field. That's right. So there could be some spillover. If you're at a softball game, you could utilize it. Then they can rent it. They can do other things with it.
And it's right near the outdoor bathrooms, so
Right.
It's perfectly.
good
It's a
location.
good location.
and it doesn't affect any of the fields. Like it's not in foul territory where a lot of balls would or anything like that. Okay, so Dunning Stadium entrance.
Dunning Stadium, fantastic. You got a picture, you don't?
No, I don't have a picture.
I know it, we've talked on this board and I've spoken with Tiger and John as well, that we've got to really look hard at our capital and whatever we can do to either eliminate or, I mean, kicking down the road isn't always a great idea, but it may be a good idea, or thinking about timing. So I know, you had some thoughts on this one. You want to?
Right, so unfortunately, we don't have a picture here. I got a picture on my slide deck, we'll show you after, but it's the area that is outside of Dunning in basically the triangle or the T intersection between the school, Dunning, and then across the way is the turf fields, the tennis courts, and the track. So that whole area is a very, very busy area at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, or almost at any time. And we were asked at the time when we originally paved it to take a look at that area as far as traffic circulation goes. During the Dunning Stadium improvements, when we looked at the whole master plan for Dunning, we asked them to take a look at that, the consultants to take a look at that, and they came forward with somewhat of a traffic circle and then a reconfiguration of the parking lots. Then we had the Department of Justice come in and tell us that we've got some connectivity issue problems between the high school, Dunning, the track, tennis courts, the turf fields, and the turf field across the Dunning that needs to be addressed, and we tried to address it in that plan. It's a little out of phasing with Dunning Stadium because we were looking at this being the second phase, and it might turn out to be the first phase because the press box is still working its way through fundraising. But we're under a little bit of a time constraint from the Department of Justice as far as our timing. But as we spoke, this $2 million would not be for this summer's construction because we can only construct during the summer, during when the school's not in session. So we get basically June 18 to August 26th. We will not be ready this season, but we will need to be ready next season. So the thought is that I need a little bit of money to design it, to finalize the design for next June, basically June 18, but I got to bid it sometime in April-ish, get it to the selectmen sometime in May, which almost lines up with next year's budget cycle versus this year's budget cycle. I put it in this year's budget cycle because it would have been constructed in this fiscal year, the fiscal 26. Theoretically, I just need the design money, about 200K, I would say, to then get it. And then I can come back with a firm number because this 2 million is literally a number that came from the consultant at a very high level, at a 30,000 foot view versus a much dialed in number.
How would that work? I mean, I love that plan. That makes sense. Look, that's what you're going to do anyway. You have to do the
I have to do the
planning
design
and the
anyway.
design work, and you have to get a firm bid and a real number, a sharper number.
I don't need to tie up $2 million for the capital.
Okay, so, but Ann, if we were to do this a year from now for 2026-7, he could start the project. We can't start the project till June 20th or something like that. So could we approve it a year from now for that year, starting it on July 1st? Yeah, of course we could.
Okay, yeah, so I would
10 days, is that guess you wouldn't have to. I don't know. We can figure that out, but
figure that out.
that's a big move. That's a good idea.
But we
Okay,
said
yeah, right.
come down to 10% of the 2 million for the design,
Okay.
about 200K
All right, when you come back, let's put that in the,
in the mix.
you do that.
Yeah, no, that sounds
think
great.
it-
And then when you're out, we'll put 1.8 in,
Yes, that's correct. Or whatever.
whatever you get
where we're at.
with the consultant, but
That's
just,
correct.
I like having a 5-year plan.
No, that's right. Yeah,
and you don't
perfect.
wanna forget it.
Department of Justice, what
Help me with where they're.
We had, sorry, we had a
Mhm.
complaint on accessibility issues in several of our locations, one being the track with the bleacher system that's at the track. And they,
For
for
disabled?
people with
Okay,
disabilities, that's correct. So they came forward to take a look at a bunch of areas in town. So Waveney House, the paddle courts, the paddle hut,
Downtown.
downtown. They looked at this campus, the town hall annex, Vine Cottage, the firehouse, and then the turf fields and the track and Dunning Stadium as well, and then the areas surrounding it. They came in with one complaint. It started off as just a track, and then it expanded in scope. So we worked with them on an agreement. And they finally came forward with an agreement, and associated with that are certain things that the town has to take care of. And then there's a time frame associated with each one of those elements. And this has a 2-year to 3-year time element on it. And given the construction and the timing of the agreement, really got this summer and next summer, because then the agreement ends before the following summer.
Got it.
So that's where that.
This wouldn't, what we just decided is actually what you were going to do anyway, and it's still compliant with that.
Yes, it is.
Okay, good. All right.
Yeah,
That's
that
important.
was
Okay,
just-
good.
Yeah, it was literally, the reason it was in here now is because of the timing on a June 18 being in, June 18 of 2026.
Got it. Okay, that's a good one. And then
Right.
what do you have on?
So the-
Waveney Park Conservancy.
Oh,
Right.
okay.
So the Conservancy, right now, we've been given $300,000, just given to your discussion too, Titus. Right now, the Conservancy is coming forward with a plan for the Merritt Parkway Trail, but they don't have a plan yet. They're planning. So I don't know if you want to table this and think about,
Ian,
I'm
can
not-
you,
I'm
can
not
you,
close enough
can you
to-
come forward? Because we talked to our bond counsel about this. Because, they don't have a project. It's a $6 million project and so they didn't spend the 300 from last year. They're not going to spend the 300 this year. So they're using this as a savings vehicle to get to 600. And I think, I wasn't on this board, but there's been a commitment to, helping the Conservancy. It's just, can you highlight the conversation with my council?
So in talking with bond counsel, there's nothing wrong with doing what we're doing, but she said it's really not the best way to do it. It's like a savings account. And we don't have a policy that says our authorization runs out in 3 years, 5 years. So it is indefinite, but it's not the best way to do it. It's to come up with the project and then say it's $1 million, whatever it is, as opposed to every year we're doing 300,000 because we don't bond to arrears. So I'm going to have that outstanding authorization sitting there for how many years until they decide when that project's going to happen. So she said a better way would be to decide on that project when they're ready to go forward, make the authorization at that point for the full amount needed,
That makes
as
sense.
opposed to these
I
increments.
think that makes sense. Okay. So
Right.
this would come out.
So that was the other.
Yeah, it
thing we
makes
had.
sense.
So that was the
Yeah.
other 300.
We have to approve the full plan once they have it. Yeah.
The other
okay.
300's already.
There's 300s already authorized, yeah, and I haven't bonded for some of them.
And this is a private-public partnership?
Yes. With the Conservancy.
And how much are they in for?
They have been for any project that we've done with them, they've been in for 50% or more of the project. And they've done projects on their own. So they did the Jenny and Meadow on their own.
Mm.
They did the plantings coming
Amazing.
in from South Avenue on their own. We partnered with them for the South Avenue trails. The trails came in from South Avenue to the house. And then the pond, to Jenny, the Anderson Pond, the dredging of that was a 50-50 split, but they covered all the contingency and anything else that happened on that. So they were actually above 50% on that. We were a little bit below. And then the service area, where we covered the walls and they covered the patio and all the landscaping. That was pretty much a 50-50 split as well. That was work that we had to do because we had to do the walls and they wanted to beautify it with the patio.
Philosophically, are we okay with that 50-50 split? I mean, how did that,
I don't know.
is
I
that
mean,
just
it's
an
been-
ancient practice or was it voted on by somebody sometime?
We have we have an, I don't know.
There's an MOU? Oh,
Says it in it. I don't know if it actually spells out, do we have an MOU with the Waveney Park Conservancy? I don't know if it spells out a 50-50 split. The original, when we came forward with the pond, It was an agreement between the first selectman at that time and the chairman of the conservancy to be a 50-50 split. I think that that's carried forward. I think that that was the genesis of it.
Okay, so it's a tradition stemming out of an old MOU.
Let's get the MOU. Let's go through it. Yeah.
Mhm.
I think if bond council's recommendation is to do it that way and you agree, then we need to do it that way. I don't think we're in a position to override that. So let's assume that comes out and would be part of a.
2-1 now.
Eh.
Or 2-1 just in parks.
You haven't even got here yet. You haven't even come here yet.
Right, and I haven't come back.
Typing away like a madman.
I thought, well, gee, I had an agreement, had an agreement at the door before that we were just gonna walk out before, but yes, we're a little bit better.
Well,
Three hundred from last year that we approved last year, what happens to
It's
that?
just
sitting in a fund.
It's just sitting.
Stays there. And what we also too, if you think about, we have to then report that every year in the audit that we've these authorizations open that haven't been funded.
Can
So
we,
it
can
shows
we
our debt.
rescind that agreement and just put it back in the general fund?
It wouldn't go anywhere. It just means that you would just
can get money.
authorize
You-
it. So we didn't put some of the money in there. So it would just deauthorize the project. So it would just
Yeah.
look like we just don't have it anymore.
Hey, Victor, we didn't, to my knowledge, I don't think you actually went and bonded for that 300 specifically.
Not the latest one. We might have done, because some of it was spent. There was one of the
Some of it
years
was spent.
was some
One
of the
year.
spent. So once
Yeah.
the project's done, we've 18 months to bond that. So we have to watch also too.
Could you get back to us and let us know if there's something hanging out there that is not yet bonded?
Mhm.
And if we need to do an action to
Or close it out.
deauthorize it, because the bond council and you have said that's not the best way to do it.
Yep.
Okay, let
Definitely.
us know. You still have this page. There were some things on here that weren't on there. So Irwin Park Boardwalk.
Oh, you got the extra pages. Irwin Park Boardwalk is not in the
No,
budget.
it's
Okay, so even though it says 25, 26, so it's not there. Okay, all righty. And then, okay, but many of them are.
These are the only things that we just talked about
Okay, all right, okay,
in this year's request.
okay. There were a couple then, and we just covered Dunning. Last year, go ahead.
Oh, Irwin Park Boardwalk was approved, I think, 2 years ago. I remember Judy Neville was here when we approved that. And what's the holdup there?
The estimate of construction came in higher than what was originally anticipated. So we paused the project while we're trying to determine
The conversation with the Board of Selectmen was it was significantly higher than originally estimated. And there was you need to fundraise to make this a more, a project that people might be more enticed by. And they decided they wanted to go back and rethink the project. And I'm not even sure, I haven't heard anything else from them. And that was probably 6 months ago.
So that's another project that really ought to come out of the pipeline because it's now kind of.
It's in here.
Limbo
Actually, I
somewhere.
didn't see it in here, but I didn't really look that carefully for it.
not in the request. It should
Let's
be.
deal-
No, this
Authorize
is
it.
this is the.
Irwin
old-
Park Boardwalk.
Yeah, this is the old list. that we
That's
have
what's
to go
not
through.
spent. Huh, yeah, okay.
How much is it?
It said 127 for what's been approved but not spent. But this would be, I don't know, maybe this,
So
You'll
now
let
the
us know.
project has changed so that it would come back to us at a different price with different components. So there'd be some private money in there and then the town money and the new bill would be 150 or whatever it is. And is that what you're saying?
In essence, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we paused the project. We didn't complete the design. We were
They
going
asked to
to.
come back. They're not ready. They said, we're not ready for this project. Can we come back? Because we,
Sure.
as a Board of Selectmen said, you're not there. And
yeah.
they decided they didn't want to proceed and they wanted to re-look at the entire project.
Okay,
And they said, we will come back when we're ready.
Again,
well,
let
then
me
it
ask a-
comes off the list.
let me ask a process question though, Ann. Did we bond for $500,000 in a previous offering for a project that we approved that has now had the brakes hit?
That was only $175,000.
Not-
Wasn't 500, it was $175,000.
That was all we did.
That was,
Okay,
it was, the
Maybe
budget
it's
was
a
$175,000.
piece.
Did we spend any of that money?
Yes.
Oh,
I always read the last page. Don't you know? Footnotes are where all the action is. That's where
And that was the page before we even got to the first step. And I pushed it down on my presentation, and when I sent it forward, I should have removed that.
You won't make that mistake ever again. right?
When you held it up, I go, uh-oh.
just, and we talked about invasives last year. So what's the latest with the invasives?
If you don't
No,
mind.
I got it.
Actually, two of the members came to the Park and Rec Commission to give their update. And that's what they want to focus on at Irwin is invasives up there.
Do we have to do any money or they're raising the money?
Right now, they're raising. the
Okay.
money.
Any, great job on operating in capital. We sort of sprung it on you, but we're going to be really hard on capital. So apologies, but you did, that's a terrific job. Any other questions? John, gang? You good?
We're good. Thank you.
Michael, you good?
Yeah, no, he did a great job at subcommittee, so
Great job.
very comfortable with their pitch.
John. Okay,
Thank you.
now the fun begins. Public Works.
Whichever one. I got, this is the Lux seat right here. It says-
Absolutely, literally the hot seat. Just make sure that mic's on and, yeah. Okay, presentation, here we go. Again, Tiger compliments. Thanks for pulling this all together. Number 3.80.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I gave my staff the night off and said they've been working really, really hard, except for Lou came in. God bless Lou.
He's also sleep deprived, so.
Lou is our new, Lou, come on up here for a second. So Lou is our new highway superintendent. He's the new Mose. So he took over a couple of months ago. Has been doing a fantastic job. We had an interim superintendent when Mose retired in September after 44 years with us. Lou had worked under Mose for about 7 years or more, and he was Mose's pick to come forward. So we had an interim superintendent for a couple of months, Jimmy Peck, until January, and then we brought Lou forward in January. And he's fired because it's been snowing since he came here, so it's over. So unfortunately, it's basically right.
Have made them soft.
Right. Yes. Right.
Think about sleep deprivation in the winter.
Great job, by the way. Very good job.
Now he's cracking the whip, but it's been he's been doing a fantastic job. Almost every single morning, every night we've been here, and we'll be back here again. But I gave everybody else the time off because the guys, there's only so much in the battery that only so much.
We're
charge
getting
left in
more.
the battery.
So, yeah.
But okay, so I've got a couple people on. I got Maria and Nick and Donnie Smith will be on, and Joe Zagorinsky will be on Zoom in case there's a question for the engineering staff, transfer station, wastewater at that point in time when we get there. And then Luke can help with any of the highway questions.
Great.
But thank you very much. So we're happy to be here to present our fiscal 26 budget. John had mentioned that the largest driver that we had this year was the fact of salaries. So you're looking at I'm at a 3.8% increase, but that's in essence 2 years worth of salaries because last year we didn't budget because we were in budget negotiations and then we just closed our negotiations as far as our union goes. And now we're looking at the entire change from fiscal 25 through fiscal 26. So fiscal 25 was let flat, and then because we didn't know what we were going to have, and then fiscal 26 going forward, we know what we're going to have. So when we get to that department, the highway department, transfer station, wastewater, you'll see that the highway department salaries are up by 7%. So Nick and I were talking about that this morning. it's not really 7% because it's 2 years worth of data. as
And
far as-
just so you all know, the Board of Selectmen moved in police and fire up 2%. So we didn't do that in prior years, but this year, so we don't have this big shift going forward when we have contract negotiations. We take it just 2%. And then we put the rest in contingency just to, so that the comparison year to year isn't so huge.
Right. Thank you. So yeah, exactly. That explains it because right now we're at 3.8, but before that change, I was at 1.91. So now I'm at a 3.8 where it's a little bit of a different look, and then if I took out the one hire that we have this year that we're asking for in our engineering department to bring us back to our original contingent, when I first was here, when I came here in 1998, we had 5 individuals in the department. For a number of years after I was hired as director, we worked with 3, and then we hired Maria. We've had Maria for about 5 years now, and we're at 4, but I'd like to get back to the original contingent that we had of 5, which was from 25 years ago. We have a lot more work going on in town, a lot more things happening in town, and we need more boots on the ground because even from our job perspective as to what we're being asked to take care of, at the time that we had 5 in the office, it's markedly changed from then till now as far as what the mandate is. So you'll see that there's a little bit of a bump in the engineering department, but overall we're at 3.8%. We think that's very fiscally responsible. Deanna did a fantastic job of having us review everything that we had been previously budgeting for and then going forward. Board of Selectmen did a very nice job bringing that forward. And this slide only gives you that bold red line is actually normalized for the highway department versus inflation. And it's almost spot on as far as we're back in fiscal 10 where the highway was to where it is now and how it normalized for the rate of inflation all the way across the board. But you can see the rest of the departments are all basically below that line, which we're proud of. As far as getting into each one, administration, there's a mild increase of $2,000 or 0.63%. And that's just a increase in the salary line and a little bit in our office equipment and supplies. We did, take out $10,000 out of our outside contractors line. We had been historically spending somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000. We had 60 in the line. We dropped it back down to 50. That was a drop of $10,000. And then we had to add in our professional services line for our weather sentry. That's our weather service that we use for all the departments that we call in. We have a meteorologist that we call into. We consolidated that underneath one account to pay for. But that $11,000 for an annual cost for weather probably pays for itself in one storm based upon call out time and when we need to bring the men in and when we need to start working and when we can kick them off at the end.
With the bad storm that we had in August, the 900-year storm that I've had in my lifetime. What was the incremental cost to the town? Was there do you ever track what?
170,000 we got
That's
back.
what we're
Right?
going
like that?
Well, that's what we're going to get back from.
That's FEMA.
from FEMA.
So is it about that, a couple $100,000 possibly of road damage? And
What? Closer to two.
I kind of remember 200. Okay.
Okay.
So that was as bad of a storm. Other towns got serious damage.
We made out very well
Right.
for that. What?
Knock on wood.
Yes. Oh, sorry.
The 200.
We did, comparatively speaking to other towns around and then driving through them to get here, they lost roads, they lost bridges. We lost a portion of a road, we lost a portion of a bridge, very mild repair on the bridge and very mild repairs on the road itself. So we did, yeah.
What would FEMA, as a percentage of the damage, what would FEMA pay?
Depends on what it's for.
Like roads and bridges, what would it be?
It's up to 75% in
Yeah.
certain categories. And then
Okay.
they also provide they pay for your overtime and then your equipment
Yeah.
in certain situations. So the man and the piece of equipment on an overtime basis, they actually fully reimburse us for.
Okay.
So there are certain things that we make good money and certain things we don't.
Russ Kimes has a spreadsheet that has it all laid out, so
Okay.
we can.
Okay,
get
we should
that.
talk about that then.
Yeah.
The reason I'm asking is that there's always pressure on us to be fiscally prepared for these disasters. And so that's a an unassigned general fund question for this board. And what do the rating agencies or everybody, forget that, just our taxpayer, what do they expect us to have at the ready for these things? And so when a big problem happens, it's a good benchmark for us. What did it cost us? Well, it cost us kind of, a few $100,000, and it didn't even cost us that actually, if we got 75% of it back. So, or was that the cost? Our claim was 200,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so the whole damage was really de minimis. Okay.
Right, we've had storms that were much worse. So like Isaias, Sandy, we've had storms where we've had substantial damage and
Right.
substantial, mostly.
Like
tree.
quantify that, what would that be ballpark? Couple, 5 million, 2 million?
I don't want to spitball. I have the data. I'd have to get back to you. I know exactly how much it cost us.
We should know and what
can
we
tell
got reimbursed and what was the risk to the town, because there's the question of, well, we're having more extreme weather and there's more of the extreme storms and there could be more extreme damage and so forth and so on. So we just have to be thinking about it as a town. What do we need to be prepared for? Now, we don't sit on a river. We're not on the ocean. We don't, there's a lot of huge advantages we have for sure. And it showed in August, obviously. But anyway.
We can give you the, so Bill Ostman, at the time, he was running
Yeah.
that portion
Yeah.
for us from FEMA. We can go back to you and tell you exactly how much was cost the
Yeah.
town and then versus how much our
It's
reimbursement.
not urgent. It's not going to change
No, we
anything
can-
between now and February, but March,
But
but
we
it
can
will
break
in
it down.
May. So we should
We'll
make,
give you, yeah, because we can give you specifically Isaias and Sandy, because those were basically our
Perfect.
two
okay, that would
largest
be good.
ones of recent
Be
note.
great. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on administration? The engineering is a 25% increase year over year, but that's because we've added an engineering technician for $100,000. If I took the engineering technician out, I'd be at a 0.7% increase, or $3,000 year over year. We did decrease our part-time salaries. We had someone working for us part-time for transfer station stickers and then for our sewer fees. We're able to, now the program's launched and we're able to do that in-house ourselves. So we were able to reduce the part-time salaries there.
Just on that one though, Tiger, this has doubled since 2017, 2017. Fiscal year 17, we're just in the mid 200s and now we're 500. So that's a lot.
So what happened there was you'll see a commensurate drop at 2017.
And it was flat, you can see in your years here for 5 years.
Right.
And it jumped in 18 and now it's really doubled since 17.
There was a time frame where my budget, okay, so when I was the assistant director, I was in the administrative side. When we hired the town engineer, we took my salary and put it back on the engineering side. So you'll see on administration, there was a drop at that time because there was the director and myself in administration, because the director was the director and the town engineer at the same time. So we were both stacked underneath administration, and underneath engineering, I only had the senior engineer and the staff member. And then when we hired Maria 5 years ago plus, we then, I think it was 1 year more. So she was carried in one spot and then we transferred her salary back. So I think that was the change. We
part of
haven't
it.
done anything.
Well, it jumped again in
strategically different.
21, 22. Anyway,
I think that's the time when we moved her back
okay.
in that jump. We, strategically, we haven't done much. We've added a little bit in outside contractors, but we haven't strategically done much.
But this should normalize back to inflation-ish levels or
Yes.
salary increases.
Yeah,
okay,
it was really her change and then this change. And then you'll see, we should be back to where you see between 11 and 18 or, 18 to 21, where it's relatively flat. We
Okay.
shouldn't be looking at any increases.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. The next would be town buildings. Town buildings is looking at a 11% increase or $150,000. And what this is we're seeing an increase in our outside contractor line, our cleaning line, and our service contract line. The reason for that is all of our contracts are expiring as of June 30 of this year. So we've already pre-bid, we already know what the numbers are, and we baked them into this request. So our cleaning's gone up by $60,000. Our service contracts, that's for our HVAC, for anything that we have in all of our buildings, is going up by 49,000. And then we have a modest increase in our outside contractors for any repairs that we have, because every single one of our buildings, except the police department, is a year older. Police department's the only thing that's brand new. So as I mentioned, each one of those contracts was a multi-year contract. So the majority of them were very flat. So we're looking at a very flat contract for 3 to 5 years. And then now we're rebidding and we're seeing a bump because now there's a normalization to it.
And I asked the question today, if this bid for the next 5 years, is it right?
Yeah.
There's another increase per year, and he said it's just small, right? Yeah.
Some of our contracts have basically a cost of living or the CPI built into it. These do not. Any questions on town buildings?
Are we going to get a police building update with police, Tucker?
Well, I can bring Joe in next time to give you an update if you want. The best news is that we're coming in June 3rd is when we're going to move in. And the
Okay.
reason I remember that is because that's my birthday. So right now we're slated to move the police back in June 3rd. It's about 6 months ahead of schedule.
Mhm.
And based upon their estimate this morning, we had about $1 million left in contingency. Overall, granted, we still have a little bit of time left, but we got about $1 million left. So we have so we're on budget and ahead of schedule. It's about the best way to describe it. But I can have Joe come back in and give you
We need that because the $1 million contingency, there's almost nothing that you would need that for at this point. You're in the shoot, I would think. What could you need $1 million
pretty close,
for?
but I don't want to speak for the building committee. So I'll have
Yeah.
Bill and Joe.
I'm going for a soft close here, so you hear me. Okay. All right. Well, let's do that, please. I think let's just do that.
If Joe's on,
Joe's
we'll
on.
tell him the 25th.
That'd be great. That would be terrific. And it's a good story. So it'd be
Mm-hmm.
good for us to be in sync with all that.
Right. And speaking of birthdays, I got to give a shout out to my father. My father's 84 today.
Oh,
So
my goodness. All right.
He normally looks at every single one of my budgets. He did not look at this year's budget. Last year, he had the, Tiger.
Well, now we got to look a little closer. 'cause-
And so any errors or omissions are completely mine. I can't blame him on him. So, but he will watch this. So I gotta say happy birthday to my father.
Birthday.
Yeah. So the highway department is at $120,000 change. But if you look at that number, that specific number in the salaries, you'll see that it's a 7% bump from one to the next, but there's not an interim bump on fiscal 25 for the salaries themselves. So that if we went back and normalized fiscal 25, this number would drop a little bit. But we did drop out of our outside contractors line $32,000. That was for basically snow clearing in the downtown area. We had money set aside for outside contractors to come in if we needed to clear snow in the downtown area between Thanksgiving and New Year's. When it snows, we try to clean it up so the businesses are open, everyone can shop. And it was determined that if we do that, that's really considered an emergency. So we would come back and ask for monies if we needed it, but we would handle that on an emergency basis and not budget for something that might happen, only budget for things that are going to happen. So that was a good direction from Deanna, our first selectman, to take that money out. And then you'll see that in here, we had a little, shuffling of numbers or monies between road maintenance, supplies, and our repairs for mobile equipment. In essence, what we're trying to do with finances guidance is to bucket the monies appropriately in the right account for their right expenditures. So we had a road maintenance is certain items were more necessarily supplies, should be bought out of supplies and not out of road maintenance and things of that nature. So this year in fiscal 25, we did make a budget changes. You guys approved it to move these monies around to try to line up. And this year will be our guinea pig year to try to make sure we bucket everything properly into every single line. And this is our guess for next year as to how they're going to shake out. And anything, if we're off, we'll just move monies back and forth. We're not asking for additional money. It was basically, we took $74,454 out of road maintenance and added it to two separate lines for a total of $74,454.
Following. So we're up 120,000. Your salary line's up 154, but that's a 2X.
Mhm.
right?
That's
All right,
correct.
so you're,
Yeah,
so it's really up 75.
If you look at page 43, you have the details with.
Yeah, I'm on the budget book. I got it. I think I've got it right here. But my point is the rest of the non-salary line, you're actually negative.
negative.
You're negative year over year. That's
Yes.
very good.
This was actually, without this salary bump, we were actually in the negative for the highway when we presented to the selectmen, we
negative.
were in the
Yeah,
negative
yeah, yeah.
for this account.
Even with it normalized, it would be half of this. You'd be up 1.5%, 2%
Right.
total.
Right.
That's very good. That's good.
Is there an offset to the $30,810 reduction to repairs mobile equipment? Or that's just a savings?
No, that's basically looking at where we were year over year. And we were averaging about $100,000 out of the 3 years. You look at 117, 79, and 99. And we said that's about $100,000. So we dropped that number down from 138.10, which was the adopted last year, to 100,000 this year, just to stay in line with where we were spending. So it's just, I said, you call it a savings, if you will.
Calendar year.
I think so.
Yeah, that's what screws it up. Your contract is, we were just debating why you do this adjustment as on one fell swoop, the Board of Ed phases it in. It's because their contract starts on our fiscal year and yours is a calendar year contract?
No, ours starts on a fiscal year basis as well, but we just settled it about a month ago. And we ended the year not knowing where we were, and then ran through till November-ish, December, before we settled. We just settled. So now we know what the numbers are.
It's how they budgeted, Chris. So before the contract was settled, everything was put in a different line item. They just ran it flat with where it was without accounting for anything. And then, and so once they got their raise, they had to put in the full amount of what was settled from last year, plus we settled this year. So you're almost getting 2 years this year.
Right.
It's a weird timing thing. That's why
Yeah,
we
I
adjusted
mean,
PD and that's why we adjusted
I'm not
PD
seeing
and
it, but okay,
Okay.
I'll take your word for it.
So it would be if we were just gonna completely just put it in the budget, be a massive number, but we're tucking some of it in contingency, is that?
Not this time.
not this
Oh,
time.
going
That's why it is a
forward.
massive number, because
That's
we
why-
didn't do
Right.
that.
Yeah.
We're saying that now going forward, you're tucking in a number as a
Yeah, so you will
placeholder
know
that'll be
for
close.
next year, like PD, we just said, because we talked about it on the Board of Selectmen. PD was budgeted the same way that DPW was last year. They didn't put any of the potential increase in the budget, put it all in contingency. And so then what happens is when you get to this year, it looks wonky. So we said, you know what, we don't want to do that anymore. Let's just put a base number that won't, I mean, obviously you don't want to guess on what you're going to go into union negotiations at, but let's put a base number that it definitely will be at. And then put, something in contingency in case.
Thought was we didn't want to tip our hand, so we just kept our numbers flat,
Yeah,
and didn't put anything in. It was in contingency, so it was budgeted for, but it wasn't in our line. So if anybody looked at our line, you would just see that every salary was flat. So the town was not tipping their hand during negotiations as to, oh, we think it's going to be 3%, 2%, what have you. So we just leave it flat. But then to Deanna's point, it looks a little awkward
it
when
hits
we
actual.
rebalance it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there'll still be a little bit of a gap, but you're not going to have this kind of a gap.
one-time contract for 2 years. Fixed amount. It was
Right.
0, maybe 7 and then 0. Basically, it's split out. Board of Ed's 3% every year. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's how it goes in, yeah. All right, thank you.
Okay. No problem. Any other questions on highway department? The next is the transfer
That's a lot of
station.
money.
So transfer
This one
station,
is very clear.
transfer station is
But you know, the other one is-
at a negative minus 0.3% overall.
it's within it, so
It's a minus $7,000. And in essence, what we have is, again, same thing. We took a hard look at each line and brought ourselves back to what our typical spend was for each of the lines. So we have a reduction in our groundwater monitoring, our repairs for machinery and equipment. We have a new loader in our budget for that's actually been ordered. It's waiting to be delivered. So we're looking at that. That line will come down. Our repairs mobile equipment was dropped. And then we had a $25,000 reduction in recycling based upon what we were looking at for year over year. So we had $250,000 in fiscal 22, and we've dropped down slightly, and we were at 275. So we dropped that number back down to 250. And what we have right now is we have one hauler that is going to a different location than coming to us. It's going somewhere else to a different transfer station. He might come back to us if his clients shift and it's better for him to come to us. More New Canaan clients come to us because we only accept New Canaan clients. Right now, he's taking it to his yard, and that would change. So we don't want to change too much, but we know that we could change a little bit, but not too much. We couldn't go down to the lowest number because if he comes back, we'd be in a bad cycle at that point. Not only be concerned that we're recycling less, we're not recycling less, we're just receiving more to the transfer station so that we don't have to then send it back out again. So we receive it at a certain rate, we receive revenue on that, so there'll be a revenue decrease, and then we're seeing that less expenditure outward. It just comes down to volume. It's not whether or not New Canaanites are recycling less, it's just the amount that we're receiving at the transfer station by volume is less because less of the population is coming to us because another hauler is bringing it someplace else. That was a concern this morning. Someone had that, worried about the recycling rate. Our rate hasn't changed. The rate of recycling or how much recycling per our population. It's just how much is coming to us. I don't know if you have any other questions on the transfer station itself. The next is the Nature Center. The all utilities for the Nature Center. So it's electricity, fuel oil, and propane and water. And we look back at what our previous spends were and then added in what the increase we are thinking we will receive from the different utility companies, and then added in that percentage. So, we went back, looked at what we were spending, added in the 11%, what we think is going to be electricity, and then came out with a new number of 35,750. It happened to be less than what we had last year. And that's why you see a reduction overall. So it's basically a resetting of the paradigm of where we were. Any questions on the Nature Center? The next is town utilities. So this is our sewer fee that we pay for our buildings, our hydrant service, and our street lights. So our overhead lights in town. And here we're looking at, we have 427 overhead lights. We've got 318 fire hydrants in town. We got 2.7 million inch feet of water main in town. We pay a fee to Aquarian and to Eversource for those utilities. So we pay a fee to Aquarian on a per inch foot basis per main for them to actually have the pipes in the ground. Best thing, we had a meeting this morning with Aquarian and the Regional Water Authority, is they pay us property taxes back for that main that is in the ground. And then we lease 427 overhead lights from Eversource. In that is the electricity charge, but then also in that is maintenance. So if the light has a problem, they come and fix it. If we want the light removed, they come and take it down. If the light gets knocked down, they come back and put it back up again. So we don't have to worry about any of the maintenance for it. So it's actually a very good system for us, given the fact that we only have 427 lights. Some municipalities own their lights, but they have thousands of lights. It's a completely different ballgame when you have thousands versus hundreds. So this is actually cost effective for us. I don't know if you have any questions in here. We just basically took a 5% increase for one and 3% for the other. That's been our standard moving forward. As to, we don't know where they're going to be because they have to go to Pura to set their rates, but we've typically kept a 5%, 3%, and that's boded well for us.
Because you haven't received the rates from the utility yet, right?
I just got the letter for one of there are two divisions, the Western Division and the Eastern Division for Aquarian. I received one of them, the Eastern Division, and I asked the CEO today to give me the Western Division because that's actually the largest division. The majority of all is on that side. It's only 90,000 inch feet on one side. The rest of it is 2.6 million is on the other side, waiting for that number. And then I'll have a little bit better clarity.
Just in your capital budget, there are some requests for new lampposts, a couple of different ones. Those aren't covered under.
No, they're not. Those are in the parking lots. That's in Center School parking lot. Those are ours.
And Waveney.
And Waveney. That's correct. All the decorative lampposts should kind of clarify that. All the decorative lampposts, the nice gas lit ones, those are all ours. Those are all town owned.
Oh,
The
okay. So the
overhead
ones
lights.
downtown and so on. Yes.
Yes, the downtown lights are all ours. The overhead lights are the large Cobra ones. It looks like a Cobra head sticking off. That's the Eversource lights.
Okay.
Throughout the rest of the town.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Excuse me. The next is tree service. I tried to keep this flat, but we gave the tree warden an additional $1,000 in his salary, and I took $1,000 out of another line. And then I forgot to calculate for Social Security, so there's a $76 change. So I'm gonna make this number zero because I want it to be zero, so I'm gonna take $76 out of something else. Because I just want it to be zero. I don't like 76 bucks.
Deed goes on.
Be the new numbers. I was like, oh, I can't believe I'm off by 0.1%. So something will happen. So it'll go back down to 539,413 is what the number's going to be.
What sparked the decision to add all those trees to South Avenue? I see you're gonna be adding like 50 trees.
150 trees. So this was an initiative that was brought forward approximately 20 years ago to actually to plant trees on South Avenue from Cherry Street all the way to basically Surrey, Saks School. And they only got to Bank Street at that time. And then they stopped. And then 20 years later, we've had die off, removals, things of that nature. So now we're looking a little denuded across the way. So the the Beautification League, I was going to say the Garden Center, but they're no longer the Garden Center. The Beautification League came to us to resurrect that project, that program. And we were able to fund it originally out of ARPA funds. We had $200,000 placed for trees in the ARPA fund. And we've designed now with their help and Keith Simpson Associates, tree placement from Cherry Street all the way to Saks, basically the second driveway of Saks. Plans are complete. Plans are at the state. State's now going to go back out and do another inspection. The moment that they're done with that, we'll come with a bid for the trees to the Board of Selectmen. And then there'll be the Highway Department and a couple of outside contractors will plant. But basically it was an initiative that had been started, never completed, and then we look to do the entirety of South Avenue. I think it'll be beautiful when it's done.
So we're using ARPA funds and Beautification League.
We're using the Beautification League's expertise and volunteer hours, no monies from the Beautification League, but the monies were originally allocated through ARPA. Yes.
Okay, great.
Does the tree warden's budget, is it at this level still sufficient for them to do the basic job of making
Yeah,
sure these trees that,
Off the wires.
off the wires and
So off the wires is Eversource's responsibility, and they come forward and take care of their wires. They have an arborist in our area that comes out and takes a look, and they give us what they're looking at for each year. This year, they're not doing much, but in the past, they had done up to 60 miles at a time in
Mhm,
town.
yeah.
So this year just happens to be a low year for them. They've been doing this for almost about 10 years now. After the storms that we spoke about, that they had so much problems, they came in and started to do some proactive line clearing. They have just routine maintenance, anything that might come into the envelope within 3 years, they take care of it. And then they have what's called backbone restoration, which is anything that might come in within the next 8 to 10 years, they take out. Basically floor to sky, 8 feet wide around any one of the lines themselves for that reason, for resiliency. But they take care of that. Tree warden itself takes care of every other tree that's not in conjunction with a line and anything in the parks. And yes, to your answer, yes, we bumped him a couple of years ago. We were able to get to a 12th bid, 1 per month. And for the past 2 years, it's been adequate. So I didn't want to change it. And Bob Horan, our tree warden, felt the same way.
Okay.
You could really feel the difference. I mean, I remember every year at least 1 week of power outages. And then 2015, 16, it changed. And now it's just, if any, maybe a few hours, maybe a day.
I think that this tree program has actually been very good for that, because we had West Road was annihilated during Sandy, and it was unbelievable at that time. So I think they've done a very good job, and they've done a very good job of managing it, especially people's expectations around tree clearing and pruning in front of their own property. It's an area that they don't own. It's a tree that they don't own, but, you know, Eversource checks with every resident before they actually touch the tree. So I think they're doing a nice job on that.
And along the state highways, does the state do that work or is that also Eversource?
Power line, Eversource, opposite side of the road, state.
Okay.
Yeah, and we work together with them on certain, if we want a tree that's to be removed on state property, they'll come in, sometimes they'll cut it, we'll take care of the traffic control and we'll take the wood, but they'll actually cut the unit down or cut the tree down. So that the tree at Bristow, the large oak, unfortunately, that had to be removed, that the state warden and our tree warden deemed it that it needed to be removed. They came in and did all the work. We did traffic control and we took the wood.
Ferry wires that, I mean, I know got some in town, but further out, is that ever, and do people ever pony up to say, hey, you know?
There was a couple of individuals that did it on Douglas Road,
Right.
Orchard Drive, forgot where Rick Corkin lives, but there was 3 homeowners that did it. We're at present working with the Utilities Commission and Mr. Corkin on putting out a bid. The RFP went out this morning to an engineering firm to help us scope out work to see how much it would be to bury the power lines and the utility lines, communication frontier, along the corridor, the South Avenue corridor as a start, to see. So we placed that RFQ out, and then 4 weeks from now, we'll get that back.
Huge
Excuse me?
savings
Yeah,
over
that'll make a
time. I
big
mean,
difference.
There'll be there's a large capital expenditure to put them underneath the ground, but then over time, you would likely see that, you know, the less maintenance above ground, things of that nature.
all the poles.
But right now, we're just in 4 weeks from now, we'll get the RFQs back and then we'll go forward from there, selecting a consultant and then move forward with that portion of the project. Any other questions on tree service? Yeah,
Burying those lines, is that in this budget?
no, it is not. No,
In the 5-year plan?
not at present. I don't know exactly what it's gonna be. They've estimated anyone from $1 million a mile to $5 million a mile.
Mm.
That's why we're trying to scope this project to see exactly what
That's-
that would be. So, you know, when we looked at Main Street, doing it on Main Street, the quote was $1 million a mile. And they wanted a $500,000 upfront deposit to actually design it. And it was non-refundable if we didn't go forward with the project. So they could have designed the project, come up with $2.5 million, say, to bury all the wires on Main Street. And if we said no, they would have kept the $500,000. So we said no.
Business. I gotta give you that. That's pretty good. No matter what I tell you, I get to keep it.
And then from there, that was 2012. And from there, the number has only increased. So that's why I say, depending upon who you talk to, you get $1 million or a $5 million number. It's somewhere in between that. And I just don't know what that is. So that's the reason to try to find out a little bit more about it. And then the last is
One of the flaws, though, if I remember that conversation, was that's all well and good, except we don't generate our own power. It comes from somewhere. So if the lines go down in Norwalk on the way,
right.
what was the point?
We are at
You know,
their mercy.
yeah,
That's
so-
correct.
That was, you didn't like that I asked that question, but
If it gets knocked down someplace else and it's out of our purview or out of our jurisdiction or out of our town, which is basically out of our jurisdiction, then we're waiting for that to be restored for us. Yeah, it all runs off of circuits. The majority of the circuits that we have come out of the Lakeview substation, and that's under our purview during an emergency.
Yeah.
But anything on the outskirts is not, comes out of the Norwalk work office, and we're at their mercy for that. For the wastewater plant itself, it's a $1,500 increase or 0.1% year over year. Very nice job of where we are. The only thing we have an increase in our outside sludge hauling contract and our supplies lines. And the outside sludge hauling we're in year 3, I believe, of our contract. And they have a CPI built into their contract. So we have a slight increase on sludge hauling. And then our supplies lines, chemicals, that has an increase. And that is basically what keeps us from having to go forward with the large plant improvement that we would need, that capital improvement to get zinc and phosphorus out of our wastewater. So right now we're able to handle it chemically, and we're doing a nice job with that. It's just that the chemicals, each year we have a little bit of a bump in chemical costs, but it far outweighs the capital costs that we would have. Our permit does expire in January of 26. We'll be bringing a contract to the Board of Selectmen in 2 weeks to have AECom take a look at redoing our permit, and then we'll look to redo our permit for the next 5 years.
Where are we with the ultraviolet?
So the UV system, in essence, we're done with the specifications and the design. And now we're waiting for the grant information back, because we don't want to go forward and then find out that we needed certain things in the bid package.
Yeah.
So we're waiting for some information back from the grantor to be able to put that into our package and then put that out on the street. But we're in essence, our designer is pencils down at this point in time, just as of about a week ago, maybe 3 days ago.
Okay.
And now we're waiting, and we'll hopefully get some answers from the grantor as to what they need in our package. So we don't have to go through the hoops that we had to go through for other grants.
So is it still planned for this year, fiscal year, or is it gonna roll into?
It
Depends on when we get the grant. I'm literally, it was so painful, a prior grant that we started before I'm like, we're waiting until we get notification on the grant. It's $1.1 million. It's worth waiting for.
Yeah, it's a significant amount of money, and but the issue now is we have to wait for federal government, which is a little bit. We'll leave it at
Pass the
that.
budget.
They're getting closer.
From last September.
So the next is just capital. Yeah, I was trying to get here as fast as possible. So
Time out. Questions on the operating? Anybody? Michael, you good? I mean, that was, again, I think
Yeah,
good
I'm good.
and overall really well managed.
all right, thank you. So our capital budget overall is 22% down, or $5 million down. It's actually more now because it just handed back some additional monies from a little while ago, and I'll probably give you back a couple.
I think we're halfway there.
Well, I got 1 million left in my pocket. That's about it. So let's run through each one. On the engineering side, it's 5.6 million, down from 7.75 from last year. In essence, it's everything that we have been funding in the past. Our payment management program last year was 3 million, and this year is 3.5. But last year we talked about the fact that over 5 years I normalized it as to what we would need, and I was able to make do at the $3 million mark last year. This year, going to need 3.5, and then it worked its way through. And at that point in time, we'll see at the end of 5 years where we are. But the overall thought on that is that had we funded it with a 2% increase year over year from 2003 to now, it would have been a $72 million budget itself. We were able to make do at $56 million for a $16 million savings, and our PCI actually increased throughout that entire time. And now we're looking at the fact that a PCI is hovering right around the 90, which will stay. Now going forward, that's pretty much our markers, about an 89 and change, a little
So
under 90.
This is one where we absolutely need to look at what's been approved but not spent.
Everything that I have is encumbered. I think I'll have $87,000 that's not
Okay,
encumbered.
that's, so
So I have,
it's not spent, but it's planned.
yeah, I have a couple of projects that are slated to roll out in the spring, Pine Street being one of them, the reconstruction of Pine Street, and then our slew of everything else that we have left. And everything that we have left is just under 3.5 million. It's like 3.4 and change. I have everything that you see on your sheet is encumbered for work that's planned for this spring.
Okay, so on this list that you guys got with the unspent monies,
John took my list.
when you come back and we talk about the capital,
Absolutely.
there's about $2.5 million of total pavement management from prior years. So if you can reconcile that, that'd be
We
great.
certainly will, because there is not much money left, to be quite honest, that is not already spoken for out of that 2.5 million.
All right, well, if we can have like,
I
you
will-
said, the
I'll
details on.
give
them.
you everything that we have, every account and where it all is as far as encumbrances, and where it's planned.
All right,
Yes,
great.
I have all that.
Can you just give us a quick update on the Lakeview culvert reconstruction?
Sure. So it's under design right now. Our consultant is working through that. We're going to be going to wetlands for permitting in March, April. We're looking to hit the street in April for a bid and start construction June 1. And then it's approximately a 6-month construction phase. So the thought was to be able to go out and bid and then get to the selectmen for basically a June 1 start. So it'd still be in fiscal 25. And then it's about 6 months of work. We'll have to close the road and detour around it. And we're working on, the driveways that are inside, making sure that people that are inside that work zone have access. But the majority there'll be a detour down Summer Street and around, and then down Millport to get around the area.
And in the meantime, is there any risk of like the road collapsing?
Not at present, no, but we are under a mandate to fix that rapidly.
They did do some shoring.
Yes, after the last storm, we had a little bit of an issue in one of the corners, and I had a contractor come out and repair it. So it's back to the condition it was in prior.
Is it something we can show FEMA and say, hey, FEMA, this is.
Good
This just
question,
happened.
good question.
Short answer is yes. FEMA did take a look at that, and there might be grant monies associated with it for what they consider to be storm hardening, right? So so that they don't have to come back and fund another repair of this structure. So we have a grant that we're pursuing underneath the federal bridge program, a 50-50 grant, which is 50%, 50%. And we're being told by FEMA that we can pursue this additional grant for the monies, the town side, the 50% on the town side, we can pursue FEMA for that. So we are looking at both sides. We're hopefully optimistic on that. But our consultant is looking at the one side of the bridge, and then we're looking at this to grant, and then FEMA for another portion of it.
Thank you.
The pavement condition index, is that like a survey that's taken, or is it based on, we know we did this road 3 years ago, so it's in theoretically X shape, because reality.
That's a great question. So in 2003, 2004, we had a firm come in, VHB, and do an entire analysis of every single one of our roads, down to the point where they actually measured the linear footage of cracks and the width of them. Okay, so to get what our original condition was, and our original condition at that time on average was a 77. They had software associated with it that inside had basically a calculation as to the depreciation. I was able to, after a number of iterations, determine what that calculation was. So I was able to then utilize that going forward for every single one of our roads. And I carried that forward for the next 15 years. And in 2019, we had a firm come in and analyze our roads again, take a look, street scan. They came in.
How'd you
with it.
do versus that?
What?
How was your calculation versus there?
They were 2 points higher than me. I was at an 85 and change. They were at an 87 and change. So I was actually, and I was trying to be conservative. So I was actually to the good.
Be a
on
good
it.
side business for you.
Yeah. Consultant when I eventually retire. Yeah. But so we did that look as a test after 15 years to make sure that we were on track, and fingers crossed. And then we turned out that we were completely on track for it.
Every 15 years or so,
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend it. Dion asked me that same question, but it's quite expensive, to do. And I wouldn't recommend doing it, often, but yes, every 10, 15 years, it's a good check on your work.
benchmark. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
5,000, right?
Huh?
$105,000.
$105,000 spread over 3 years. Yeah. $35,000 a year.
So to do the inspection.
Right. That's why we, no, I don't think it's cost
It's the
effective.
side business.
Right. It's still, it's very lucrative at that point. So then, and then the other thing that we did is we dropped our sidewalk improvements down by $250,000 to $500,000. And the majority of this is for the behind the Y Putnam Road area, phase 2. We're out to bid right now for phase 1. We're waiting for those bids will be back in about 3 weeks. That estimate is about $500,000 out of the $725,000 we had budgeted for the year. And then we've got $200,000 slated for South Avenue itself, the sidewalks along South Avenue for all the pedestrian ramps. There are 37 separate ones. If I remember, 37 separate intersections that we have to take care of. So that's there. And then the rest of it is just associated monies across the board for various improvements that we have or that we need. But we did drop that sidewalk down by 250,000. Any questions? No? All right, so we'll get to the reason why Lou's sitting here. Actually, no, I got one more. So so next is town buildings. Sorry, the town buildings is $6.265 million. It's up $4 million over last year. Here we have Waveney House exterior improvements at 2.45 million. We hired Hoffman Associates to come in, do an analysis and envelope review of Waveney House itself. And they've been working with our current architect, Architectural Preservation Studios. And we are a couple of weeks away from going out to bid. So the thought is that we'll be out to bid by the end of the month. We'll be asking for the bids to come back at the end of that month. And then we'll be coming back to the board with a firm number as to where we are. This is an estimated number from Hoffman itself. We'll come back to the board, all three boards at that time for the true number. And then we'll ask if we could have that bonded earlier rather than later, because we would like to go to the selectmen in May to then get this project out and running. So we can do it in the spring, summer timeframe. So this one we'd be looking at coming a little bit out of cycle for you as far as approvals, but we'll know a little bit more within about 4 or 6 weeks. We'll know a firm number at that point in time. And then we have many monies set inside here for the Lapham exterior improvements, the exact same thing, $685,000 for Lapham, for that to take up what the concerns were from Hoffman's report for the exterior of Lapham. And then we have $1.32 million for the Irwin House roof and other improvements. This is for just the exterior of the building. We had Hoffman come in and do an analysis of the exterior of the building for the roof, the brick, the windows, everything, all in 1.32 million. We also got an estimate this morning, a budgetary estimate this morning for removing the building at $172,000. Not in that is some environmental costs. So we've got to come out and do a phase 1 environmental review. And then we would actually have to then have them on board to do the actual work as the building's coming down to make sure that we're following all the guidelines. All that environmental work will be about $40,000, but the actual, if there's lead in the building, asbestos, other things like that, we don't know yet because we have to wait for that first phase 1 review. So we're meeting with Fuss and O'Neill tomorrow. That's our consultant. They're going to give us a proposal Monday, Tuesday of next week. We're going to bring it to the first selectman and ask that to be approved immediately so that we can work on that to try to get that number dialed in a little bit more. And then we can come back to you with a more firm number. But the overall thought is that we're at about $200,000 for removal, maybe more based upon the environmental aspect, and 1.3 for just the outside of the building.
And it's 300,000 for the inside.
200 to 400. You know, originally we had about a $400,000 look,
Second floor.
but not, yes.
And
Thank you.
it's like a million savings.
Who's
right
in there now? What's
So
being kept?
in there right now is New Canaan Cares and CERT. So New Canaan Cares is there. We didn't remove them, but when we had to do the Playhouse, we set them up at Irwin, and then CERT needed a location to meet and store some of their equipment. So they're there as well. So they
Where
meet
would you
there.
think they would go if
We're hoping that they might go to the police department. CERT, New Canaan Cares, that's for others to decide at that point. But, the discussion that we had is whether or not, if you're thinking about taking the building down, then there's no reason to go forward with anything, no work at that point in time, $1.3 million. And there's not even a reason at this point in time to fund the removal, because I think you would just figure out a plan. And at that point in time, say, okay, the building's not costing us anything right now as it stands. It's not going to fall down. It's not going to cause us much in that way. So to sit and wait for a little while to come up with a plan as to what to do after you take it down, if that's the thought, then you just remove the $1.3 million out of the budget, and then we go forward looking at a
And
plan.
don't add back the 300 to do the work. You wouldn't have to make that decision now, or you wouldn't do it.
Right.
You
you
don't
could-
do it. Why do it? Why bother doing it until you have a plan? Well, I think this board needs to have it's time to think hard about this. This is a very serious money pit. And, you're talking about 1.3 plus another 300, that's this year. I mean, where are we 2 years from now, 4 years from now, so forth. So it has very little use and it requires a lot of money. We already have one of those houses. It's called Waveney. And, we're all in on Waveney. We've got to make that right. And we're not. It's leaking. It's got problems. So, I think just to get the feedback from this group, I really recommend that I would say do nothing and then put together the plan and make a decision.
Although I guess you have some of the money that the demo,
Yeah, I have monies right now. You had given us $150,000 last year.
Yeah.
Towards repairs that we could utilize towards environmental review, things of that nature. We have to spend
Yeah.
some money on that. Yeah, that's what you're speaking of, right? So.
Well, when we talk again, and not next week, but the week after, I think we should see that and what the trade-off here is. This is the plan.
Mhm.
Plan B, spend the 170, do the environmental, whatever you think that may be. And that may be the answer that we have, team. And because we
What is the other structure that's there? It's near the parking lot. What is it?
The Course Pavilion.
Okay, and there was a new roof put on that.
We put a new roof on a couple of years ago and it had been refurbished under a grant. A SHPO grant, State Historic Preservation grant a number of years prior.
And what's the use for that?
That's Historical Society has purview over that. So they have tours, they have other people that, and they have people that can use it. There's an agreement. It's always an agreement. There's an agreement with the Historical Society and the hours and what they can do and when with it, but it's underneath their purview.
when we think about planning for that space, are we limited in what we could do there if we wanted to build some other kind of little shelter or a little something, a little,
there are restrictions, so you can't do any educational.
No schools.
No
Yep,
schools
that's
can
right.
go in that space. You can expand the building footprint up to, I think, 15% over the existing footprint. So, those are kind of the
Okay.
existing, and you can't use there's no nighttime usage.
Okay.
So you
Okay.
can't
That
use,
that was in the deed.
that's in the deed.
Okay, well, that's pretty
That's
open
the
then.
deed.
We could do lots of things there. So, okay.
8,000 square feet. structure.
Footprint, house, that's right, yeah.
You get up to
Big.
probably,
The open space if we know.
The open space, yeah, right. Okay,
Mark it down.
okay.
throw it
So
out.
that goes on the list of
Plan
seriously
fast.
considering not funding until we have a plan.
Mhm.
And then ultimately maybe that it just comes down and we figure out what we have to do with those people using it. Okay, I mean, it's not ADA, right? It doesn't need, there's a lot of investment we need to think about avoiding here.
What is the heating there?
It's oil.
Yeah, so is there an underground oil tank or anything?
No,
like
we
that?
we removed those prior.
Okay.
So we're better on that.
Good.
You say no, we can't get to the second floor now. Is it because
I'm sorry.
the second floor of that building is unusable now for what
It's
reason?
unusable now because it's usable for storage. We can't put offices up there because we don't have an elevator. So it's not, it's accessible from that standpoint. But we have it for storage. So we were storing materials up there during COVID,
Sure.
masks, cots, things of that nature. But it can't be used for municipal purposes for staffing.
Okay. All right.
And then the only monies that we have left here, we have $265,000 slated for the powerhouse reconstruction. That's for the lobby. $65,000 for the body ship, but $200,000 is the remaining portion of the town's contribution to the town players' efforts to reconstruct or the lobby area itself. I'm sure you've seen those plans number of times. So in essence, I believe they've hit their fundraising marker, and this would help bring the project over the finish line for the lobby itself. This is not for the annex. The annex, there was a $500,000 original ask in from the town players for the annex reconstruction to be split 50-50. That was removed at the Board of Selectmen level. But so this is just for the lobby expansion, and then the bathrooms that are in the powerhouse themselves to make those compliant.
So this isn't a bucket of money that we be part of another bucket of money. This is a standalone investment to do those things that you just said. So
No,
there'll be-
this is a bucket that's part of another bucket.
that's a problem for us. I mean, we just had this conversation. We can't keep doing, you understand?
I understand that. The problem is that what happened with this is we had enough monies at the time. And then the thought was to look at when the town players brought in a consultant, a theater consultant, they actually started looking at the whole campus and the annex portion. And the thought was to include the annex portion as an educational space. So at that point in time, to then look at the overall picture, that delayed the project over a year or two, and the costs have increased from our original ask to where we are now for the lobby work. That's why it's part of, if you remember the 3 250s, and the ARPA 2, okay, that's right. Okay, that's part of those.
Well, we have new
250s.
members. They don't know what you're talking about.
I don't want to really revisit it because it's
Right.
completely confusing.
I'd say go to the videotape, but it's, yeah.
For the 3 250s, then that was the basically the buckets of money that we're talking
Well,
about.
I think the question though, we just heard from Ann and the bond council is we shouldn't be budgeting for and putting away money for, that's part of a plan of, that's incomplete. We need a complete plan and then we can budget for it and approve it. That's,
You're correct. It just,
It's the
the way
same
that this,
I understand the history now, but we think we just have to change direction based on that guidance.
I have no problem with that. It's just the way that this one played out, unfortunately, yes.
Is there a containable piece of work that could be budgeted for and done? That would be good and that would be worth, if that's true,
Well,
let's,
that was always the question with the bathrooms and the ADA thing. And then every time we looked at it and said, well, let's fix it, then the powerhouse people say, oh, no, it has to be. And so we never can move forward on this until there's a complete plan.
I think the feedback, that's the feedback, is help us with a containable thing that we could budget for and fund and do.
This is-
200,000 does this thing.
This is a containable item.
Well, I asked if it was and.
If it was standalone. I took it as, this isn't standalone $200,000 project 200. This is 200 plus the monies that we had prior, including
But
the
Tiger,
playhouse.
what about, okay, and we have represent, but I thought that that there were like water lines and sewer lines that were gonna have a problem if we did one section first and didn't do the whole project because it doesn't make sense to do, the main section because you're gonna be needing to either reroute sewer lines and water lines.
To do the additional bathrooms, the exterior bathrooms, we have to go through the annex. So it would not be cost effective to do the exterior bathrooms now because we'd have to cut the floor of the annex, repair the floor of the annex, and then you're going to take the annex down. It's just, that's not the way to do it. The lobby itself, you theoretically could do the lobby and then calve off the annex and the bathrooms if you so choose. If not, you do it all in one shot. Yeah,
So
and
the
it's
new
cost-effective.
ADA compliant bathrooms for the main original Powerhouse Theater could be done with the money we've allocated.
With,
Yeah, sure.
Yes.
Just, this mic's on, so maybe that. We're trying to find something here.
Appreciate your support as always. So Patricia Spagani, representing the town players of New Canaan. So we basically have two projects. We have one project, which is the lobby, including the ADA bathrooms for the theater. And because of the size of the theater, we require to have 4 restrooms, which won't fit in our current lobby. So that aside, so as you hopefully have seen from the email that I sent yesterday, we have with the $200,000, excuse me, that is in front of you, we have raised the budgeted amount, the $1,650,000. If we didn't raise another dime, that money should be sufficient to complete the lobby and the 4 ADA restrooms
inside.
for the theater. It's a budgeted amount based on what we have from Tiger's experience, the architects, and informally some builders reviewing it. With that funds, what we'd like to do is be able, with your contribution, be able to get a firm bid so that we know, is that the right amount of money to have? We need your extra $200,000 so that we can actually go and do a firm bid. So if that's approved and in July 1, right, when the money is available, theoretically, we should be able to go out to bid for that. And then we'll know if that's the right amount. The second project is the annex. That's $1 million. And that would replace the 40-year-old building, which, to Deanna's point and Tiger's, the floor in that is 4 inches too high to ever be used as a public building. So it would not be accessible for the level of the courtyard from a accessibility guidelines standards. So there's multiple reasons to replace that building, including the use that we expect to make of it as a addition to our programming for the community theater. And when it's not used as a theater, it would be additional community space. Plus, we'd have a brand new building that would be beautiful and accessible and available to the public and not just used for storage. So that's $1 million. We've received a state grant in December with great thanks to Lucy Datham's support and the governor's. The $500,000 that we requested that I came and talked to you about in the fall, if you were to approve that, that would help us with the fundraising. And that would mean that we would need to raise an additional $400,000, which I now have a fundraising committee helping me, and we would make every effort to complete that and make those funds by July 1, in which case we could do this whole project. We could pursue this whole project. So the funds that we got from the state, we plan to use with architectural preservation studios. It's the same architect that we've been working with and you're working with at Waveney, so that we would have a firm plan. And that's those funds we got from the state would give us all of the blueprints and diagrams that we need. So I'll stop there. But if we do nothing else with the annex, we really want to be able to get a firm bid so that we know if we have enough money to go forward. So I think, Todd, to your point, I fully appreciate that you want to have a complete package. I think we have that package. The architects have 90% of the drawings complete for that. So we have everything except the final funds to be able to go to bid. So I'd hate to get this far, you know, and go back to our donors and say, well, we don't know yet, right? We're as anxious as you are to get that work done.
I'm not sure I followed the package. Can we take a minute on that again?
Absolutely.
I heard a lot of numbers, and I'm not sure, including 200, but this is 265, and I heard 1.6 million, the new annex and so forth. So what is the package total, all in?
So phase 1, if you will, or part 1, I'll say not phase, but part 1, the lobby, the theater ADA bathrooms, and our new office in the potting shed. That's 1,650,000 as best as we know.
1,650,000.
50,000.
Okay. Okay. And you've raised?
We've raised half of that, 825,000. 700,000, 725 in the bank, and 100,000 we've spent on architect and engineering fees. And that includes, that number includes a 10% contingency.
And is this 265 against that?
200 is against that, yes, and 65 is the town's portion against the potting shed renovation.
The 265 is against phase 1. Is that fair? Okay, so that's where the 265 goes. Okay. And phase 1, okay, so then that's part of the package. What's the rest of the package?
So that's package 1, if you will.
Yep, phase 1.
And you could
And
do
how
that without if for some reason phase two never happens.
Never happens, the annex sits there as a 40-year-old building, aging, whatever, storage, that stays. No harm, no foul. We all say, thank you very much, and we go on.
Oh,
We
so
have
it
a
is
new.
kind of a separate project.
It-
I know it's part of the vision, but I understand it now better. Okay.
Right,
Okay, and so why don't you
the
get,
reality is, because of where it is located on the property, I'll be honest, if we don't do it all now, it's probably not going to happen.
Is the 65 though, Tiger, is that for the exterior bathrooms? What was the 65 for?
Potting shed. Right, because we have to put the offices into the potting shed, and the potting shed, from what we had originally estimated for the exterior, we started having the structural engineer take a look on the inside. He was like, you need some additional work on the inside to shore up the building. That's why we're adding the additional 65,000.
just, so wait, 1.65, half of it's raised, this 265,000 is part of that. That's the lobby, ADA, new office. What's phase two?
Just,
The an-
let's clear, how much do you think we've already approved for this?
875,
875.
875
Approved 875 already for this project?
for the town.
For our portion of it, that's correct.
Don't any more money.
So that includes the public bathroom,
Right,
so
that's a problem. Towards this package was $500,000 plus an original allotment when we started the project back in 2018, when we thought it was just going to be bathrooms, no lobby, nothing, at approximately $100,000. So that's where she's getting the 125 from. So it's basically 625 has already been allocated. The 250, that was that third 250, that's for the potting shed and the exterior bathrooms. This gets worse and worse.
But keep going on this rest of the package. We had phase one for 165. We've raised, or we've approved 825.
No, 875.
Let's pick a number here. What is it?
there's a port.
No, so
Go
the
ahead.
unfortunate thing is now you're starting to package everything together. You've really, for this portion.
Yep.
It was $500,000 to the town players, okay?
That was a previously approved last year or the year before.
250 buckets, one in ARPA, one in budget or bonded.
Okay.
And then we had 250 that was set aside for the potting shed and the exterior bathrooms.
Okay.
$100,000 was actually for the potting shed of that money. So in this package, that's in essence what you're looking at.
And just help me with the rest of the package, which is the annex, I guess. What's through all of that? How much is
Okay,
that?
so the annex were, again, rough estimate,
Mhm.
not as
Sure.
well,
Yep.
right? We're saying $1 million,
$1 million.
somewhere between 700 and $1 million.
Okay.
The
We've-
building portion is probably about 700, and then to outfit it with the theatrical piece of it inside would be another 300,000 or so.
And we've approved nothing for that per se, and you've raised nothing for that.
We have $100,000
You've raised
towards
100.
that,
Okay, I got
which
you.
is from the state grant that we
That's right.
received in December.
Okay, 100K, so we have 90 to go. Okay, that helps. So it's a $2.6 million, $2.7 million all-in program.
Plus the public bathrooms on the campus. If we look at the powerhouse
Which is that? Yeah,
campus.
yeah, fine. Well,
165.
that's 100 on top of this.
On 150, but you already allocated that.
Well, I'm gonna get to that. Okay, I'm still trying to get the full.
Total state grant is how much?
Was $100,000.
Okay.
Okay, so I had.
100,000 of the $1 million that we want to raise.
I was at 2.65, 1.65 plus 1, 2.65
That's right.
plus 150 for the bathrooms.
Plus Tiger 250 plus 65.
Correct.
No, I'm not talking about our money. I'm talking about the cost.
Just the total
1.6
cost of
plus
everything.
1, and you added 150, you didn't, but we added 150
So
for the
campus,
bathrooms.
the campus is 3,015,000 because now we've added 65.
Say the, you said it's 3 million? How'd you get there?
So it was 2,950,000. Tiger's asking an additional 65,000. So that makes it 3 million.
The 65 is it was 100 plus another 65 for the potting shed conversion.
Why can't we have like one thing? Instead of.
Trust me, I've heard it 4 times and I still have a problem with it.
For this thing.
I still don't know how you get to two. I heard 2.6, I heard 1.65 plus 1, that's 2.65 plus 150. That's 2.8. How'd you get to 3? Now we're up to another 2.
Sorry, I don't have copies. You have this from when I met.
But that's still 1.65 plus 1 plus 250.
Then there's money at the bottom of that, right?
Right, and then the
And then
piece
there's
at the
monies at the
bottom.
bottom of that.
250,
The third piece at the bottom is the town response, the town portion of it, which is the
250.
250.
Okay,
plus
let's call it
the
$3 million
65.
for tonight. That's good enough. So $3 million for this. I think I heard you had raised 850,
Yes,
and you have 100,000 from the state, 950.
yes.
And the town has approved, magic number. This is important.
875.
875. Thank you.
I know you.
No, it's okay. It's just,
75. So you are still short. This 265 doesn't bridge that gap. Doesn't get you to 3 million.
Which is why that's correct.
Okay, that's why I'm asking all these questions. Okay,
The 265 closes the part 1 lobby and potting shed and office. If we raise no other funds, we call it good and we go. And we have a new lobby and we have an ADA compliant
Mhm.
community theater.
Mhm.
So how much are you short? 900,000?
overall.
Yes, that's correct.
Call it $1 million, almost $1 million short.
Yeah, well,
So that's the annex. So you're,
That includes the annex. So in the spirit of the public-private partnership and taking a capital project, and of course, you realize this is town-owned building. So we're renovating a building that was not built to code, that was built by volunteers, and, taking it down and making it useful for public consumption and something that we can use as an added benefit to the arts and culture in the community. But
are you saying you want this 265 tonight? That does still leave us $1 million short, 900,000, of which you might go out and get private funding for. This gets you,
we are going to continue to do
Sure.
fundraising. I had requested informally last fall and then formally in the budget cycle with the Board of Selectmen that you also consider committing $500,000 towards the annex, which would mean that I would go with Town Players of New Canaan, we would go raise 400,000 to close the gap for the total project.
that's not in our budget.
Right, because this Board of Selectmen.
Yeah, that isn't on the table tonight because we're not adding that back. But I think what I'm hearing though is this helps me a lot because should help all of us a lot. Asking for this 265 is containable. It is a definable
It is a
finishing
contain-
touches to the program and project that we've already committed this money to. That is huge. I get that now. Okay.
Thank you.
I think the $1 million phase 2 is another discussion, and I understand that. I get it. But that's not a tonight thing because we can't add $500,000 tonight if they haven't
No,
approved.
the selectmen removed it.
It's not in our budget to approve. Okay, very helpful. Okay, is everyone okay on the 265 now? Does that make sense in terms of topping off what we'd already approved, all that you've already raised and the work that needs to be done?
Yeah.
Does everyone understand that?
That's outstanding. And then we can go out to bid.
That's progress.
That's huge.
Okay.
Thank you. That's
Well,
huge.
we haven't voted on anything yet, by the way. We haven't approved it, but this is,
At least they understand.
we understand it and it's let me put it this way, it's very approvable. Yes.
My question is for the ADA compliant bathrooms that are accessible to everybody in the park, that you don't have to go inside for. Are those contingent upon part 1, part 2, or part 3?
That's a great question. So they're not contingent upon anything except for the fact that if we go to try to build them, I have to go through the annex to get to them. To Patricia's point, so the annex floor is too high right now for ADA accessibility from the lobby, from any area that's there. I have to cut that floor to build that exterior
Yes,
bathroom,
said this
right?
earlier,
And then
yeah.
put that floor back at the incorrect height, and then come back later, tear the annex out if they raise the money for it, and put it all back at the correct height.
What would
It
that
gets to the
investment
point
be
where
to do it's obviously sounds ridiculous to do it twice. I get it, but is it?
we haven't estimated that out because
To put the channel in and do what you need to do and then repatch it. What is
we
that?
haven't estimated that out because at that point in time, we said, why,
Why
you know,
not? Yeah.
why bother? Let's build it with the annex. That's one of the reasons that we had. Once the annex fell into place, that kind of threw a little bit off. So, but it's possible. You know, the unfortunate thing is we can put a man on the moon. We can build a bathroom. So I just have to cut the floor. It just costs more money than what we had originally anticipated doing. And we haven't estimated that out because we said, well, why would we go out of phase? Why would we, you know, I don't want to spend additional monies if we don't have to at that point in time. So that's.
Is it possible to take some of the money that was allotted for the lobby and just first fix the annex and the ADA bathrooms and then not do the lobby?
The lobby was the first project. The lobby is actually the driver of it all. And the lobby itself, we have a situation where in the lobby, in the theater complex itself, we are not accessible as far as our bathrooms are concerned. And so from an accessibility point of view, that's the actual, what was the
Priority.
original driver. The priority was to put in bathrooms. And then to try to put the bathrooms in, it started to mess up the layout of the rest of the building. Removing the offices, where do we put the offices? Trying to get the lobby to get a little bit bigger because we took lobby space. So the original driver was the bathrooms inside the building, which drove the lobby as being phase number one. So lobby really has to be phase number one. We'd be hard pressed to build exterior bathrooms and leave the lobby still
Right.
inaccessible.
No.
That would be
that sounds crazy.
Okay, I'm satisfied.
The perfect answer is to have the money, the other million raised and do one big project. We get
Yes.
that. But what we don't know is the trade-off of what you just described. As silly as it sounds, do what you just said. Is that a $10,000 problem? Is it a $30,000 problem? I mean, it's a $500,000 problem. It's ludicrous and we can't do it.
Right. The original hope was that the state bonding commission was going to give $500,000, was going to be their half. And then we would be, in essence, we would come up the other half and be whole. But they came in with 100. Now that put it at its deficit where the players have to raise at least $400,000, if not more, towards that portion of the project. That was a wrench into the.
Can I think we understand this. We can probably move on, but we do need to know what that wasted cost, I'll call it that, will be to do the channel and then repack it, because we should know. We're going to sign up for that. It's suboptimal. We all know it, but at least it's eyes wide open on it.
Okay, thank you.
That would be
Fred.
great. Thank you. Yep, no, appreciate it. Okay,
So the only last two items we have are the education building at the Nature Center. This is for bathrooms inside the accessible bathrooms inside the education building at the Nature Center, and an accessible ramp on the outside, because right now
was this part of the Department of Justice?
No, it was not.
This is
No,
an
it's a separate. We have been working with the Nature Center. The Nature Center has come forward with how they want to see the interior of this building fitted out. They'll be fitting out the interior of the building for classroom space. Our responsibility is the bathrooms and the ramping, because it's our building and the exterior access is ours. So we put in $150,000 to help that effort from the Nature Center, is to then we'll be able to do the bathrooms, be able to do the ramp, and they're going to fit out the inside for classrooms for themselves.
Is this bid out, or that's his estimate? Okay.
Yeah, no, to Patricia's point, I don't like to bid a project unless I know that I've got the monies in hand, because it's disingenuous to the contractor. We can ask them for a ballpark figure, but to actually ask for a bid number, it's a little disingenuous if I don't have the monies to go forward. And then the last is, Chris, to your point from about an hour ago, which was center school lighting. This is for lighting at the center school lot. The existing lighting we've had problems with each light. We're having a problem now. We're getting complaints. Deanna's getting complaints. I'm getting complaints about lack of lighting inside the center school lot. And people are worried coming from the library into the lot, deep into the lot for safety reasons. And I can't tell you when this was. I think this lighting went in when we originally built the lot back when center school was taken down. I have no idea what the age on these lamps, but the thought is to remove them and put in new ones at $130,000.
But that's not an Eversource
That's not on Eversource. These are ours. We own these. This,
because the parking lot
because it's our parking lot. That's correct.
shoots.
Nice try, though.
We do have some that they do. So here at Town Hall, some of them are actually theirs. So the lights here in Town Hall are actually theirs, the large lights. But in this situation, no, these are ours. Anything else on town buildings?
I don't think so.
21, I'm trying.
Plenty.
I know,
I got a
Lou's been
couple
sitting
pages.
here
I got
for-
like 4 pages. now. Lou's been sitting here forever. He's
I
like,
know, I was like-
we were at the end. I apologize.
we are not at the end. You're in the middle.
No.
So, so we're at the highway department. The ask is 1.165 million, up from $565,000. We tried to clear our calendar for this one request. It is a combination vacuum jet truck at $640,000. The unfortunate thing is that our cold storage building, our existing cold storage building with houses, our out of season equipment and a lot of our materials has been in the capital budget for about 10 years, marching its way forward. And I've held it at the year three mark and year 2 mark for a while. And it's at the point now where it has to come forward, unfortunately, because other than that, it would have been a $690,000 request, just the vac truck and the cold storage building. To give you an idea of what we're asking for the vac truck itself, this is a picture of the vac truck. We had one in our fleet up until about 2 years ago, and then it finally left. We should have replaced it at the time, but it's a very large capital item. And we're finding that we were trying to take care of everything that this unit can do with our vac hauls, which are basically a unit that has a hose off the front of it, suck out our catch basins. We have to actually clean out every single one of our catch basins annually for our MS4 permit, our municipal separate storm sewer system permit, MS4 with the DEP. We're not able to make that mandate with the existing machinery that we have. This machine is specifically designed to do that type of work. So then we looked around to our neighbors and said, you know, who else has one? Ridgefield is waiting on delivery of this exact unit. Wilton has one that's 2 years old. Darien has one, and Greenwich is in the exact same situation we're in, using vac hauls, not being able to get to their permit levels, and they're in the market for buying one as well. So in our surrounding towns, we're basically, everyone has one. Again, we had one in our fleet. We took it out of service a couple years ago.
How many days a year does it get used?
It's going to be, but Lou is estimating 140. I was estimating 100 to 140. And then we went out and we took a look at,
Well, you know where I'm going.
what the rent would be.
No, well, I'm sure it's expensive, but why not do one together with another town?
Because they needed it the exact same time we need it.
The same 120 days.
Same 120 days. So, and then we looked at renting, but it's 300, right? It's $3,600 a day for up to 8 hours per day. That's the daily rate. And the DAS, Department of Accounting Services for the state, went out to bid for all the districts, and District 3, they got no bids on this type of rental. No one would actually answer the bid for District 3. We're in District 3. No one would answer Fairfield County. So we don't even have a marker on that. But when we went out and actually asked people that have this unit, S&S and others, it's $3,600 a day.
But you can rent them.
You can, but at $3,600.
No,
a
I'm not
day-
going there, but can you buy a used one?
I don't know if you can buy a
I mean, what's the life of these things? They only work 100 days a year.
Typically, the cost is so high in the beginning that towns buy them and take care of them and use them for longevity. It's like a 15, 20-year life expectancy. It's not something typically, someone that's dedicated.
Town would, but a rental group might sell it to you in 5 years.
You're gonna get, I mean, the possibility you're gonna get a machine that a guy's that's going out every day, you know,
Oh, the same 120 days. You just told me that.
well,
So-
S&S is.
Right.
That's
It's
their
our
job.
120 days, but we have to go do leaves. We've got spring cleanup. We're looking at 120 days in our calendar. Someone that does this for a living, their calendar is basically anything where it's not freezing. So they're out 300 days a year. We hired.
If they're getting $3,000 or more a day for 300 days, then we should buy 3 of them
And rent them out.
and rent them out. I mean, that's things, you'd pay for it in 8 months. Something's not adding up here, guys. But you're saying there's no way to get one that's a 5-year-old from a rental place?
I'm sure you could. I wouldn't who knows, the reliability standpoint might
Okay,
come into
well,
question.
I'm just asking. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a big ticket. We got to ask. Doesn't mean we know what we're talking about.
And as far as training, we actually have 3 individuals that have used this unit. They worked for previous companies, S&S and others. So they're well schooled in the utilization of it. So we've actually got members of our staff that could step into the unit and use it immediately.
So how long did the other one last?
15 plus years.
Yeah,
right?
15?
Our
Yeah.
previous one was 15 years in
15 years,
service, so.
Right. And we were actually able to, we actually just, the whole back end of it rotted away. So we actually took the back end off of it, put a dump body on it, and now we actually have a large dump body. So we're actually reusing the body and the
love
cab and chassis, but so we refurbished it and put out something else on it. So we're actually getting past 15 years. It's just not as this
For
unit.
usage.
Right, not the same usage, but we are getting, more usage
Something
out of the facility, out of the piece of equipment itself.
Waiting time for delivery
11 months.
Problem
and
is,
time it takes to fix the metal shed.
time it takes to fix the metal shed, that's a quick turnaround. I don't have that off the top of my head, but to remove that piece and then put a new one up is quick.
So if it takes you 11 months to, if we give you the truck.
Yeah.
We will, but if we give you the truck. And this year it's in this budget. And we move the metal shed out the next year because you don't have to do anything with it until.
What do you mean I have to do? I'm worried that the metal shed's
He's-
gonna
he's
actually
actually-
fall.
He's afraid it's going to fall down now.
Because he's pushed it out too.
I've had it in the 10-year capital, sitting there knowing it's gonna come forward, and we've been holding it, trying to, get as much use out of it. And now we're at the point where our crews are going in and saying, we're worried about it coming down. Want to wait. I waited as long as I possibly could on that piece.
Okay.
This budget doesn't get approved until June.
Right.
How do you, 11 months is in a year, over a year from now. Can you get the clock ticking sooner, or you kind of have to wait?
We can't wait. We can't because we have to give a letter of commitment. We can't give a letter of commitment without funds. Like, I can't ask.
I know, but you technically don't have funds
I know we-
approved until June.
Correct.
I mean, we can say what we want to say and we will do it and town council will agree and whatever, but it ain't over till it's over, right? So,
That's correct. We understand 11 months it's,
June,
I mean, no matter what, it's really June before you could write a letter that you could
That's
sign that
correct.
says it's committed.
right.
Okay, so you put an order in June, you get it in.
June
11
we'll get it
months
the
later.
following May,
Okay,
and we'll have it for
Is what it is.
next year's season. We won't have it for this season.
so what do you do this season? Rental or?
We're
Try
gonna
to-
try to do whatever we have to do, what we've got. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Any other,
Does it free you up to do other things?
Say that again. As in,
Does having this truck allow you to do other things?
no, because
Is
this
it
is
giving
something
more
that we
time?
do on a daily, say from April till the end of October.
Okay.
Typically, we're cleaning catch basins and.
I mean, but this doesn't help you do it faster? or-
Yes, it will help us do it faster, yes.
What are the?
and better probably, I
Does
mean,
the other equipment it's not being utilized for this, will it
So
be,
we still use it for leaf
does it
collection.
free that up? for-
Very
I think
good for
She's
leaf.
asking, does it free that up for other things to?
It could, absolutely. We dig the signage,
Right.
the sonotubes
We
for signs with them.
we do hydraulic excavation with it. So we do hydraulic excavation with our backhauls, whereby we can utilize the jetter that's on it and then suck out the dirt. So we actually don't even have to do a call before you dig. And now that we've got gas lines in town everywhere, we're not worried about digging the ground and hitting one. So we use the backhauls for hydraulic excavation to Lou's point. If we put in signposts, lighting, other things of that nature, we've utilized it a lot. Test holes for areas where we don't know where piping is. We try to find the piping, we utilize it for that.
any other questions? Okay,
All right.
You're all good.
I hate to be
Yes.
selfish, but I'd like to go.
Long nights. I
Thank
know
you.
you.
thank you so much. Great job with
Take care.
everything.
Next equipment.
Weekend for it.
Yeah. And you had one more page, I think, just the,
For some reason, my screen sharing. is
I have
paused.
Public Works.
Transfer station.
Right, so
Mm,
transfer station, the transfer station is $35,000. It's for replacement of the commercial railing. So if you come into the transfer station and you drive past the scale house and turn into the station, on the right-hand side is our commercial area. The railing that's there, the safety railing that's there was original to the building, original to the transfer station. So it's 20+ years old. And it's in a commercial area that gets pretty beat up on a daily basis. So right now we've repaired it as much as we can. And we're at the point now where it's over a large fall area, because it's basically an area where you drop all of your materials into a dumpster that's down below. So it's a good 8-foot drop down below. We don't want to see someone either back into it and fall over, or lean on it and fall into it. So given the fact it's 20+ years old at a commercial facility at $35,000, this is our one ask here. And then the last, we went through parks. Thankfully.
What's a 10-foot out front mower, rotary mower? What's?
That was John's ask. So John, that was a replacement of an existing 10-foot out front mower itself. Sorry, we had the same slides because we were anticipating him.
Do you use this thing? I presume you use it a lot, right?
Yes. Yeah. For him, it's outside. It's out every day during the summer.
Yeah.
So then for the wastewater plant is our last request. It's 1.434 million, down from the 4.8 of last year, because that had the UV system in it. We have various pumps. There's at least 3 separate pumps that need to be replaced at our pump stations, and off-site, on-site, and then some of our pumping systems that actually move the sludge throughout the building, throughout the complex. That's for 106,000. We have motor control electric rehab at 20,000. We have our zinc study. This is monies that we hire with AECom every year to look at feasibility on keeping our zinc levels low, so that we stave off a $10 million, $12 million capital ask. $30,000 for sewer rehab, 23,000 for sensor replacements, and then we get into the large item for our INI study that when AECom came here and gave you a presentation. This is our implementation phase at $500,000, and then engineering for the next phase at $400,000. We have several years of that in the budget going forward. And then we have $100,000 for sewer relining. We just relined Cross Street. Went very, very well. 1 day worth of operation there. That came out very nicely. And then we have a replacement of our trailer, an emergency generator trailer. We have emergency generators at every single station, but if that generator fails at that location, we would be faced with having to hire someone to pump out sludge, the sewage on an hourly basis throughout the day until we could get it fixed. We had one. This is a replacement for an existing unit that is now past its useful life. We're trying to size it so that it can not only be used for the pump stations that are offsite, but also some of our smaller satellite buildings, the Vine Cottage, the Annex, other places like that, that we could then, where we have just, we already have hookups to them, we can just bring the generator up and hook it up. But this is a replacement itself. And then we have $100,000 for our polymer system replacement. This is for our chemical system to pump through and help us, in essence, make our sludge. And this is a system that was original to the building, original to the original ass. So it's 24 years old. So it's served its time. But overall, we're in good shape. We're looking at our permit expiring January 1 of next year, 2026. And we'll go forward with AECom. Tiana, I mentioned that we'll get a request for that contract. We'll have AECom on board. If you want them to come back for anything, we can certainly have them come back. We're in a pretty good spot right now.
Probably, I mean, not today's decision, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, we still have to come back to do sewer use fees, which we figure will come back in April, May, June for that.
Exactly.
I'll give you an update in April, and then we'll start.
At appropriate times in the project, we should get updates for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think when we go to kick off, I think it might be a good opportunity at that point in time.
Right.
When we go to kick off the first phase of remediation, might be a good time to have them come back. And then other than that, we are done.
Questions for Tiger? Michael, anything? They can come
No,
up.
this is a good presentation. Thank you.
Yeah, as always, Tiger, great job. Sorry to be tough on capital, but it's that year.
Did pretty good. Come on.
You
I
did
give you-
great. You did great.
you
You did
$4
great.
million
And
back
I
in
can-
one day.
You're on the right around, coming around the final quarter. I can,
Yeah. I thought I was finishing already back in the barn. That's what I was hoping.
no, we're not gonna tear down the barn. Okay. Any other questions? Do we have to do transfers tonight? Okay, we have one other item, team, sorry. Remember this January meeting was only 35 minutes. Go ahead, Josh.
So we have a credit.
We have a credit to use tonight. Oh, Tuesday night. Actually. We're almost there. We're almost there.
Floaters. Slip a big transfer by us right now.
Okay. I will share my screen and make this as quick as possible. So there are a handful of transfers to review for throughout the end of January through February, totaling $59,799.
They're all, if you don't have it open, they're all pretty de minimis. 4,000, 2,000, 6,700. I don't see anything that's.
No, and to kind of Tiger's point during the budget presentation of moving money out of road maintenance to other lines. There are a few in this that make that move, but the one line that I actually need you to approve is a larger amount, moving from road maintenance, $74,454 to supplies auto truck and supplies general. That's $40,000 and $34,454.
If everybody followed that, 74,454 from maintenance to supplies, auto truck and supplies general, that also equals 74,454. Any questions for Josh on that? If not, we'll take a motion to approve.
Hey, just what is it? What is this auto truck?
So.
Tiger's here.
Yeah, there was some.
Oh, boy.
Just when you thought you were, well, he had the hat on, the jacket.
You didn't get the dark glasses.
What? Yeah, you can, Go ahead.
So what we did is we've gone through all the different accounts across different departments to try and keep them consistent of where they buy things. So we did a full analysis of road maintenance. And it had other items in there. So it had equipment and things that really aren't road maintenance. So we were divvying it out to say, if it's equipment related, we're going to put it to equipment supplies or anything in that capacity. And then there's others that are just supplies that, without getting too much in the weeds, we get a town road aid grant of about 300,000. So I want to keep that road maintenance account clean because there's only certain things that that grant can go against. So we need to keep the road maintenance clean. So we keep regular supplies. We broke out into all different general supplies and tools and things like that, that wouldn't be towards that grant. And then equipment, blades and different things would be in that account. And that's helpful for us then on capital assets. So we're literally just taking that account and putting it into the most appropriate object
We're
code.
trying to bucket it. I mean, we bought a shovel, put it under road maintenance because we were using a shovel to shovel asphalt for road maintenance. But in essence, it really should be under either supplies or small hand tools.
Right.
So basically, we're trying to then say, okay, well, we had this expenditure, but it really should be based upon how we're looking at it. Finance is doing a deep dive into it and saying, no, really, it should be applied here. But now we've got to have the monies that we have in the budget applied to that account. That's really what we're
And
trying to do.
Joe, this road maintenance the same as highway maintenance?
So we have operational maintenance, that's underneath the highway department. and
Pavement
then we have-
management, I mean.
What?
Is road maintenance the same as pavement management?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay.
So we have basically, it's for our same road network, but some of this operational work where it's small repairs, not of a capital nature, just small repairs here and there. And then we have our pavement management, which is actually either overlaying the road, removing it, milling and paving it, large capital expenditures to reset the road. So you have certain items that we do that the highway department does on a small basis. That's what we consider road maintenance account. And then our overall larger project is our pavement management program.
So if I understand, this is really an accounting hygiene thing. Let's get these properly allocated to where they belong for those reasons you described. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
That's my-
Michael, does that answer your question?
Yep, that's great. Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, motion to approve. Maria, second. Second, James, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed, none? Okay. Motion to adjourn. Maria, second. Nick, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. So moved. Thank you all.